Chapter 2580, Blade Unsealed, Disaster descends. Everyone on the team, including Shifeng, wore grim expressions when they saw the system notification. How did things turn out like this? This NPC is a lunatic. Magic Flash immediately began to despair. Whenever players triggered an event in God's domain, including epic events, the system didn't send them a warning beforehand. If even the system was warning them, that could only mean one thing: certain death. Moreover, they weren't at risk of suffering an ordinary death. Rather, their souls would be extinguished, thoroughly removed from God's domain. They'd have to restart from the very beginning. Even Hell Rush felt doomed, not to mention Magic Flash and the others from Dark Rhapsody in Deity Society. Ordinary deaths were already trouble for the Hell Legion's members. If they all had to start new accounts, their careers in God's domain were as good as over. His superiors might even kill him for this. Guild leader, let's split up and run. There is only one Tier 5 NPC. He can't catch all of us. The lucky ones might be able to get away safely, Blue Frost suggested. They had only one option left: escape. Whether they chose to fight the Crimson-Eyed Sword Saint or accept their death sentence, they'd meet the same end. They had to go for a third option. Overhearing Blue Frost, the rest of the team nodded in agreement. Sacrifices were inevitable, but that was still better than utter annihilation. They wouldn't have anyone but themselves to blame if they died. Do we really only have one option? As Shifeng sensed Elvo's killing intent growing stronger, he was flabbergasted. They had only come to a level 120 secret land, yet the main god system had set such an absurd trap. Human NPCs were different from demon gods. They wouldn't set a death trap for players for no good reason. Even if they did, they usually gave players a chance to survive. Did I miss some clue? The seconds flew by as Shifeng fell deep into thought. Guild leader Black Flame, what is the plan? We only have 10 seconds left to decide. With only 10 seconds on the system clock, Elder Gold and Blue Rainbow urged Shifeng, anxious. Acting rashly would only lead to a terrible outcome. The team's best chance was to move simultaneously, but even after more than 20 seconds, Shifeng had remained motionless. It was driving them crazy. When only 5 seconds remained, Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's members grew restless. Just before they split up and ran, however, Shifeng moved. To everyone's surprise and confusion, he took the initiative to approach Elvos. Esteemed Sword Saint, we had no intention of offending you, and we did not come here under anyone's command. This is but a coincidence. If you refuse to believe me, I will challenge you in the name of the Sky Goddess. Shifeng declared as he walked up to the Crimson-Eyed Sword Saint. After his declaration, silence fell over the entire plaza. Guild leader Black Flame, are you insane? Blue Rainbow stared at Shifeng in astonishment as he issued a challenge. He's a Tier 5, titled Sword Saint. Guild leader. Blue Frost watched Shifeng, as well, utterly baffled. A Tier 5 NPC was no simple opponent. With the gods in seclusion, Tier 5 NPCs stood at the apex of God's domain. As a current Tier 3 player, just escaping a Tier 5 NPC would be miraculous, not to mention challenging one. You wish to challenge me? Elvos laughed. I'm afraid you don't yet qualify for such a fight, young man. Of course, I am quite open-minded. Since you wish to prove that you're not following anyone's command, I'll give you all a chance. Hearing Elvos offer another option, the team members took a deep breath, their eyes glued on Shifeng. This is actually possible. Blue Rainbow muttered, shocked. They had been on the brink of death, yet Shifeng's statement had opened a path for survival. His courage and capabilities were amazing. It is. The system notification was a hint. While defeating a Tier 5, Sword Saint seems impossible at first glance, that word has many meanings. The system never specified that we have to kill him to defeat him, so we don't necessarily need to clash with the NPC to defeat him. Issuing a challenge was the best solution, Elder Gold said, realization dawning as he read the system notifications again. He then returned his gaze to Shifeng and continued, however, Black Flame is incredible. Even in such a tense situation, he found the right solution to this problem. Just how brave is that man? Does he really think he can defeat a Tier 5 Sword Saint? Elvo's killing intent was no laughing matter. Even as a peak expert, Elder Gold felt his mind numb when subjected to the lethal energy. He couldn't get past the desire to flee. Logically, a domain realm expert shouldn't be any more immune to the killing intent than he was. Fear was a basic instinct for all creatures, after all. With only 10 seconds on the system clock, Elder Gold and Blue Rainbow urged Shifeng, anxious. Acting rashly would only lead to a terrible outcome. The team's best chance was to move simultaneously, but even after more than 20 seconds, Shifeng had remained motionless. It was driving them crazy. When only 5 seconds remained, Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's members grew restless. Just before they split up and ran, however, Shifeng moved. To everyone's surprise and confusion, he took the initiative to approach Elvos. Esteemed Sword Saint, we had no intention of offending you, and we did not come here under anyone's command. This is but a coincidence. If you refuse to believe me, I will challenge you in the name of the Sky Goddess. Shifeng declared as he walked up to the crimson-eyed Sword Saint. After his declaration, silence fell over the entire plaza. Guild leader Black Flame, are you insane? Blue Rainbow stared at Shifeng in astonishment as he issued a challenge. He's a Tier 5, titled Sword Saint. Guild leader. Blue Frost watched Shifeng, as well, utterly baffled. A Tier 5 NPC was no simple opponent. With the gods in seclusion, Tier 5 NPCs stood at the apex of God's domain. As a current Tier 3 player, just escaping a Tier 5 NPC would be miraculous, not to mention challenging one. You wish to challenge me? Elvos laughed. I'm afraid you don't yet qualify for such a fight, young man. Of course, I am quite open-minded. Since you wish to prove that you're not following anyone's command, I'll give you all a chance. Hearing Elvos offer another option, the team members took a deep breath, their eyes glued on Shifeng. This is actually possible. Blue Rainbow muttered, shocked. They had been on the brink of death, yet Shifeng's statement had opened a path for survival. His courage and capabilities were amazing. It is. The system notification was a hint. While defeating a Tier 5 Sword Saint seems impossible at first glance, that word has many meanings. The system never specified that we have to kill him to defeat him, so we don't necessarily need to clash with the NPC to defeat him. Issuing a challenge was the best solution, Elder Gold said, realization dawning as he read the system notifications again. He then returned his gaze to Shifeng and continued, however, Black Flame is incredible. Even in such a tense situation, he found the right solution to this problem. Just how brave is that man? Does he really think he can defeat a Tier 5 Sword Saint? Elvo's killing intent was no laughing matter. Even as a peak expert, Elder Gold felt his mind numb when subjected to the lethal energy. He couldn't get past the desire to flee. Logically, a domain realm expert shouldn't be any more immune to the killing intent than he was. Fear was a basic instinct for all creatures, after all. However, after everyone breathed a sigh of relief, Elvos continued. A cursed city lord runs Poison City. Since you are here to explore this city, facing him is inevitable. What I want of you is simple. Slay the city lord and free him of his curse. None of you will leave this city before fulfilling this task. If you try, I will personally dice you into mincemeat. System, congratulations. You have accepted the inferior legendary quest, Beginning of the End. Quest content, Slay Poison City's City Lord. If all players within the secret land are slain, all souls will be extinguished. Rewards unknown. Hearing their new task, the team members' gloomy expressions returned. An inferior legendary quest. Moreover, this quest required them to conquer a level 120 secret land. Conquering a level 120 secret land was easier said than done. With their team's current strength, doing so would take around a fortnight. Failure was also likely. A level 120 secret land would be just as hard to raid as a level 120, super, large-scale, Hell mode team dungeon. Aside from the high weapon and equipment requirements, players would need sufficient combat standards. To make matters worse, they couldn't leave the secret land until they succeeded. Before they could process this abrupt development, the Crimson-Eyed Sword Saint began to chant an incantation. Pitch black, threefold magic arrays then appeared on the stone ground, releasing dense death energy. Suddenly, a 2-meter-tall man in exquisite armor emerged from the lethal energy cloud. Crodia, Poison City's City Lord, Undead, Superior Mythic, Level 120 HP 3-700-000-000/3-700-000-000 read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU, is that the secret land's final boss? Hell Rush's complexion paled when his eyes rested on the City Lord. Even for their team, a level 120 mythic monster would be extremely difficult to defeat. A superior mythic of the same level was no more than a natural disaster. Not even a 3,000-strong army of level 120, Tier 3 experts would be more than a warm-up for such a creature, much less a team of 1,000. Monsters at that rank commanded their own powerful domains. Players of the same level had no chance against them. While the team was shocked over Crodia's statistics, the City Lord approached the dried-up fountain and reached through the barrier. He grasped the dull grey sword's hilt and yanked it out of the stone. As Crodia removed the long sword from its prison, the blade's death energy began to flood into its surroundings. The thick cloud of black fog swept toward the team, and the players backed away. The black fog corroded everything it touched, and even the ground decayed, visibly darkening to a dull grey. "You may begin," Elvo's soft voice broke the silence as he gazed over Shifeng and the others. Chapter 2581, Fighting a Superior Mythic. Startled by Elvo's command, everyone fell silent again. "How are we supposed to beat that?" Kola muttered, watching the dark cloud of death energy envelop Crodia. Crodia's aura had already been strong enough, and with his statistics, their team wasn't even certain they could kill him. After taking hold of the dull grey longsword, however, the City Lord's aura had grown even stronger, and his statistics had undergone a significant transformation. Crodia, Poison City's City Lord, Undead, Superior Mythic, Level 120 HP 5-400-000/5-400-000-000 just under 5.5 billion HP was simply absurd. He could recover 54 million HP every second with his battle recovery alone. That was more than 10 million HP per second. To make matters worse, now that Crodia held the dull grey sword, the weapon's death energy had formed a domain that enveloped a 30-yard radius around him. Even from outside the domain, Kola could sense how powerful that death energy was. All life within this domain rapidly decayed, crumbling to ash. Even the stone ground turned into sand before their eyes. The domain didn't contain even a trace of mana, either. They could easily imagine what would happen to players that stood within that dusky cloud of death. Hell Rush and the others were just as dumbfounded. None of them had ever thought Poison City's final boss would pull such a move. Monsters didn't normally use weapons or equipment, which meant they didn't receive item bonuses, relying on their own basic attributes. Even then, monsters presented a challenge. Now that Crodia had a weapon in his set of armor, how were they supposed to fight him? "The system really isn't giving us any chance." Shifeng watched Crodia with a disheartened smile. Under normal circumstances, Shifeng would have some confidence of defeating the City Lord with his Ring of Gospel, but seeing Crodia now, he didn't have much hope of winning this battle. Within secret lands, players couldn't summon their personal guards, and the team's average level was still 5 levels lower than this boss. They might not even last through the boss's first phase, much less slay the undead. While the team member silently wondered how they should face this superior mythic monster, Blue Rainbow and Elder Gold turned deathly pale. Has something happened? Shifeng asked when he saw the two dark players' strange expressions. Our guilds have just received reports stating that the Alliance team Demon's Heart has killed the second boss on the Ancient God's Tower's first floor. They're only 2 bosses away from clearing the first floor's trial and becoming the floor master, Blue Rainbow explained with a twisted frown. Thanks to their alliance with Zero Wing, both Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society were developing far faster than the Dark World's other powers. This was the reason that the Dark World's various powers and players didn't dare move against their guilds. However, that wouldn't be the case if Demon's Heart's team succeeded in activating the Ancient God's Tower. Unlike Zero Wing, their guilds didn't have unstoppable NPC armies. If the Dark World's various powers and players decided to turn against their guild's members, only annihilation would await them. They've already started to raid the third boss. The news stunned Shifeng. Raiding the Ancient God's Tower was as difficult as raiding a level 100+, super large-scale team dungeon. The Dark World's players should have needed at least 10 to 15 days before they'd have a chance of conquering the first floor, yet within 3 short days, the Alliance team Demon's Heart had already defeated the first 2 bosses. Their progress completely surpassed Shifeng's expectations. What should we do now, Guild Leader Black Flame? At this rate, Demon's Heart's Alliance team will conquer the first floor within 2 or 3 more days, Elder Gold asked anxiously. They hadn't expected Demon's Heart to be this powerful. Logically, even with the clues Demon's Heart possessed, the Alliance team shouldn't have made such astounding progress. Conquering the Ancient God's Tower's trials would require a large number of Tier 3 players and sufficiently powerful weapons and equipment. Worse yet, Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's main force members were stuck in Poison City. Even if they somehow managed to defeat Crotia, catching up to the Alliance team was unlikely. We have no choice, we have to try, Shifeng declared, turning to the city lord. Do you have a plan, guild leader? Aqua Rose asked. Their team only had a little over 700 players. Every member would need to deal at least 15,000 damage per second just to overcome Crotia's battle recovery. However, they were facing a superior mythic. Even under normal circumstances, Tier 3 experts, who hadn't unlocked their mana body's full potential, would only deal a little over -10,000 damage per second to this boss. Since Crotia had grown even stronger with the grey longsword in hand, they'd likely deal even less damage. Even factoring in Shifeng and the several other players that had fully unlocked their mana bodies, they wouldn't have enough total damage per second to defeat the city lord. Emichim. This boss has a weakness we can take advantage of, but I don't know if we'll succeed or not, Shifeng said, nodding. Shifeng usually wouldn't be in such a hurry to fight Crotia. Rather, he'd help his team continue their grind in Poison City first. The Crimson-Eyed Sword Saint had only demanded that they defeat the city lord. He had said nothing about slaying Crotia immediately. They should be able to roam the city and increase their strength. However, Shifeng did not have that luxury right now. Demon's Heart was moving faster than he had expected. If they couldn't kill Crotia quickly and allowed Demon's Heart to occupy the Ancient God's Tower, only Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society would be at a disadvantage. Naturally, this was very bad news for Zero Wing, too. Shifeng had been able to rely on the teleportation gate to drastically restrict the number of dark players moving to the main continent. Without that restriction, however, the Dark World's residents could do whatever they wanted outside of Cold Spring Forest. This was exactly why he had wanted to control the teleportation gate. He only had one night division, and there was a limit to the territories he could protect. Shifeng turned toward his team and began assigning tasks. Kola would remain close to the boss, while the rest of the team would hide in the city's alleyways. Melee players would set up all kinds of traps, and ranged players would attack from the rooftops of various buildings. Remember, everyone. Only 100 players can be within 200 yards of the boss at any point. All melee players must stay away from Crodia. Healers, focus on the MT tanking the boss. Damage dealers just attack at will. MTs, switch positions once you've accumulated 3 stacks of death energy. Shifeng reminded his team once everyone was in position. If there aren't any problems, let's start the raid. Normally, they'd need a 1,000-man, Tier 3 team to raid Poison City's final boss, but when they had fewer than that, they could take the City Lord on in 100-man teams. By doing so, they'd lower the boss's HP to a minimum. In exchange, the 100-man teams would face more stringent requirements. With most of the team members not being able to fulfill those requirements, they'd have higher chances of success raiding this boss with 100-man teams. Upon hearing Shifeng's command, Cola charged at Crodia. Everyone on the team was stupefied the instant Cola moved within 200 yards of the City Lord. The boss's maximum HP dropped to just 2.1 billion, falling by more than half. However, the team now had a different problem. Rather than 700+ players attacking a boss with 5.4 billion HP, they had to face a boss with 2.1 billion HP with no more than 100 players at a time. The raid difficulty had increased, not decreased. Suddenly, Crodia appeared before Cola with so much speed that not even the peak experts had time to react. The City Lord swung his long sword at Cola, the weapon leaving a black spatial tear in its wake. Cola flew backward like a cannonball, crashing into the ground roughly 20 yards away from the final boss. Even after blocking the attack with his shield, Cola still lost 50% of his HP. Fortunately, the attack had put quite a bit of distance between the Guardian Knight and the City Lord. Cola responded by activating Protection Blessing and running to a nearby alley. Meanwhile, 3 healers 50 yards away began to heal Cola in a frenzy, Sacred Lights and Healing Lights landing on the Guardian Knight, one after another, and restoring his HP to 2/3 of his max. 2 seconds later, Cola took another strike, throwing him into a nearby wall and robbing him of another 1/3 of his HP. Even after another round of healing spells, the 3 healers only restored his HP to half. After being thrown a few more times, Cola finally lured Crodia into the alleyway. Due to the alley's complex terrain, Crodia had a much harder time landing an attack. Just as the City Lord was about to hit Cola again, he stepped on one of the landmines the team had planted in the alley earlier. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU boom. A loud explosion echoed throughout Poison City, and a damage of over -1 million appeared above the undead's head. After taking a few more steps, Crodia triggered another magic trap and took more than -700,000 damage. Just before Crodia turned to search for the player responsible for the traps, Cola charged forth and used his Tier 3 Justice Roar, causing another -50,000 plus damage and recapturing the boss's aggro. Good. It's doable. Everyone, mind your positioning. Ranged players, attack with everything you have. Melee players, keep setting up traps. Shifeng shouted once Cola had solidified his hold on Crodia's attention. He then activated Miniature World. Chapter 2582, Lightshadow improves, tough ferocious beast. When Shifeng activated Miniature World, Crodia's movement speed, reaction speed, and basic attributes decreased as if the boss had stepped into a quagmire, but as a superior mythic, his resistance to the effects was quite high. Even as an intermediate master magician, Shifeng's Miniature World only reduced Crodia's basic attributes by 15% rather than 30%. After activating Miniature World, Shifeng quickly followed up by activating Ring of Brilliance, enhancing every ranged player's basic attributes. Meanwhile, the 90+ ranged players within the City Lord's vicinity began to bombard the boss with skills and spells. Tier 3 spell, Darkness Burn. Tier 3 skill, Solitary Light. Tier 3 Spell, Consecutive Earthen Spikes. Spells and arrows tore apart the area while explosions shook Poison City. Damages exceeding -20,000 appeared above Crodia's head, one after another. Including the damage from the traps, the team dealt more than enough to overcome Crodia's battle recovery. Every member of the team was ecstatic to see this. When they had first seen Crodia, they had despaired. They had known they couldn't overcome the boss's battle recovery with their attacks alone. Killing this city lord had seemed impossible. Now that they knew they could carrot his battle recovery, however, they knew what to do next. They needed to whittle away at Crodia's HP. Of course, that wouldn't be an easy task. To maximize their damage, Cola would have to lure Crodia into the traps the melee members had set up. Unfortunately, setting up traps required a long time, and they had very short durations. When no more than 100 players could be near the boss, their timing and position had to be perfect. Claiming that a single mistake could render all of their effort worthless was no exaggeration. As long as more than 100 players stood within 200 yards of the city lord, his maximum HP would return to 5.4 billion. If that happened, Crodia would regenerate 54 million HP every 5 seconds. Even with miniature world suppression, the superior Mythic would still regain 50 million HP over 5 seconds. 100 players simply couldn't deal that much damage in so short a time. Fortunately, the team was composed of experts among experts. Even the weakest player had reached the flowing water realm. With Shifeng's wise command, none would make such devastating mistakes. Shifeng heaved a rueful sigh upon seeing the team's flawless coordination. He had to admit that it was truly wonderful for a guild to have a team of such prowess. Even though the team's equipment standards didn't meet the requirements, they still completed their tasks efficiently. This undoubtedly made the raid much easier. As time passed, Crodia gradually lost HP 95%, 75%, 50%. When Crodia's HP fell to 50%, his fighting style changed as he stomped a foot, cracking the stone as the ground sank. The death energy around him began to spread, corroding everything within a 45-yard radius. Aside from Cola, who had activated a life-saving skill just in time, over a dozen Tier 3 experts evaporated, leaving nothing behind. Crodia bellowed furiously, and the death energy rapidly gathered above him. After a moment, the dense, black death energy transformed into the shadow of a 50-meter-tall nether dragon, flapping its foggy wings. Nether Dragon's Shadow, Ferocious Beast, Mythic, Level 120 HP 6,000,000/6,000,000,000,000. How is that possible? Everyone cursed aloud when they saw the Nether Dragon's shadow. They had never thought that the boss monster could actually summon another boss. Ferocious beasts weren't like wild or demonic beasts. Their very existence was akin to a natural disaster. Some ferocious beasts were even stronger than dragons. While the Nether Dragon's shadow before them might not be as powerful as a true dragon, it was more than enough to instill despair. Crodia alone was almost too much for them to handle. Now, they had to take on 2 bosses of Crodia's caliber with just 100 players. This was a joke. Crodia had grown considerably weaker after summoning the Nether Dragon's shadow, but he still wasn't an easy opponent. The Nether Dragon's shadow descended and slammed a clawed foot into a nearby building, shattering the structure and leaving a black hole in its place. The Tier 3 elementalist positioned on the building had tried to use Blink, but he had still died in the attack. Not good. This boss's attacks have the spatial imprisonment effect. Hell Rush, who saw this from afar, grimly shouted. The spatial imprisonment effect was fatal to magical classes and players with teleportation skills. Once a being sealed the space around them, players could only physically evade an attack. However, magical class players had far less dexterity and speed than melee players. With the spatial imprisonment effect, even an ordinary mythic monster could instantly kill tier 3 magical class players, let alone a mythic-ranked ferocious beast. Just as the nether dragon was about to attack another player, a bolt of blue lightning struck its claw. Boom! With the sound of another explosion, the bolt diverted the nether dragon's claw into the street, the impact instantly forming a crater. Enraged over the interruption, the nether dragon's crimson eyes turned to glare at the figure that had launched the counterattack. Flapping its wings, the dragon's shadow sent a vortex of death energy at its new target. The vortex had a very large AoE and was basically impossible for players to avoid quickly. Wherever the vortex passed, even space shattered. Just as the death vortex was about to reach its target, the player in question raised his pitch-black longsword and swung it down in a vertical arc wall. The phantom of a gigantic greatsword appeared in the sky, slicing space and the death vortex in half, which then vanished into the void. Guild leader. Stunned, Aqua Rose turned to Sherfong, the player responsible for the interrupting lightning bolt. The nether dragon's death vortex had definitely been more powerful than an ordinary tier 4 spell, yet Sherfong had bisected it with a single swing. It was unbelievable. Aside from Aqua Rose, Hell Rush, Blue Rainbow, and everyone else watching from afar were similarly astonished. They were talking about a full-powered attack from a tier 4 ferocious beast. Even an MT like Cola would die instantly if he tried to block such an attack, yet Sherfong had countered it. Just how high was the swordsman's strength? Don't panic, everyone. Continue attacking Crodia. I'll distract this nether dragon, Sherfong instructed, glancing at the players nearby. In truth, even he had been surprised by the power of his attack. He had thought he'd be lucky just to block the death vortex, yet his Lightshadow had shattered it. He had to admit that his upgraded Abyssal Blade was perfectly suited for the mana technique. Sherfang's command rekindled everyone's confidence, and they resumed their responsibilities. Although the nether dragon had killed a few players, team members quickly filled the vacant spots. They still had several hundred tier 3 players on standby outside of Crodia's influence, so they had no worries about lacking manpower. For a time, one man and one dragon fought in the air, repeated shattering space around them. This looked nothing like a fight between a player and a monster, but a decisive battle between two heaven-defying monsters. Meanwhile, it was business as usual as the rest of the team kite Crodia around the city, steadily chipping away at his HP. Of course, they weren't careless in their attacks. After all was said and done, Sherfong was only a player. Even with healer support, there was a limit to his stamina and concentration. His fight with the nether dragon was insanely intense, and neither his stamina nor his concentration would last long at this pace. The team was in a race against time. Fortunately, the density of the death energy surrounding Crodia had decreased significantly after he had summoned the nether dragon's shadow, which, in turn, lowered the city lord's magic resistance. This considerably increased the team's total DPS. However, Crodia had begun to launch even fiercer attacks. Every hit shattered a building and killed anyone caught unprepared. As a result, the team steadily lost members. Even as players died, however, Crodia's HP gradually decreased. 40%. 20%. 10%. Finally, when Crodia's HP fell to 1%, the nether dragon's shadow roared and transformed into over a dozen streams of death energy that returned to the final boss. Don't you dare think you can heal him. The sudden development didn't surprise Sherfong in the least. This was Crodia's trump card, which he would use when he was on the brink of death. Each stream of death energy could restore 3% of the superior mythic's HP. To make matters worse, Crodia would summon the nether dragon's shadow once more after the healing process ended. This move had abruptly ended many superpowers raids in the past. Sherfong quickly activated the Abyssal Blade's darkness domain and executed Sword's Orbit, using the 36 streams of power of darkness to prevent the death energy from approaching the city lord. Quick! Attack with everything you've got. I can't hold them back for long. Shifeng shouted as the streams of death energy began to move faster. Players didn't have the power to destroy this death energy. They could only do their best to stop the energy from reaching the boss, but as more time passed, not only would the death energy move faster, but these streams would also multiply. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU, attack! Zhao Yueru and the others shouted as they desperately bombarded Crotia with whatever spells they had available. They only had a small amount of mana remaining, and they had exhausted all of their powerful moves. All they could do was manipulate their mana to increase their spells' power and accuracy. 0, 5%. 0, 3%. 0, 1%. Boom! With one last explosion, Crotia transformed into a thick cloud of death energy, rapidly dispersing from the alley and spreading throughout Poison City. The team's survivors then heard the sounds of multiple system notifications. Chapter 2583, Clear Reward, S-Rank Rating System, Congratulations. You are the first team of players to complete Poison City's Secret Land Crusade. Rewarding level +1, 50 free mastery points, 5 legacy skill points, 1 exotic legacy potion, 20 God's Domain reputation points, and 40 Poison City reputation points. System, congratulations. You are the first team of players to challenge Poison City while below level 120 successfully. Rewarding 100 Poison City reputation points. System, congratulations. Your Poison City reputation has reached 100 points. Unlocking Poison City Exchange Merchant. You may now purchase Poison City's specialty items. System, congratulations. For completing the inferior legendary quest, Beginning of the End, in one day, you've received an S-rank clear rating. Rewarding level +1, 10 legacy skill points, and 1 silver legacy treasure chest. The series of system notifications momentarily stunned every survivor on the team. These rewards were simply too abundant. Even without the quest rewards, Crotia had awarded enough EXP to add another 40%, at least, to everyone's experience bars. Including the various quest rewards, everyone on the team rose by at least 2 levels. Even the players that had fallen in the battle and later resurrected had reached level 114. These rewards just saved us more than a fortnight of grinding and dungeon raids. If the others back in the guild find out about this, they'll likely die from envy, one of Dark Rhapsody's main force members said as he looked at his own level and available legacy skill points. Even the various superpowers peak experts would be lucky to reach level 110 by this stage of the game, yet the lowest leveled player among Dark Rhapsody's main force members had reached level 114, with many already at 115. In other words, they were one minor threshold ahead of the various superpowers peak experts. While a gap of 5 levels might not seem like much, it was massive after factoring in the difference in equipment and weapons. Furthermore, level 115 players could equip level 120 items. Aside from the significant increase in levels, the team members were elated when they saw how many legacy skill points they had earned. With 15 legacy skill points, they could learn a new tier 3 legacy skill, which would elevate their combat power to a whole new level. That's nothing. Take a look at the exotic legacy potion and silver legacy treasure chest. Now those are truly amazing, a level 115, tier 3 dark shield warrior exclaimed as he pulled an ink-black potion and silver chest from his bag. When the rest of the team examined the 2 items' descriptions, an uproar swept through the team. Exotic legacy potion, Grandmaster potion, consumable, grants user guidance for 1 hour in unlocking the mana body or gaining mana control. Limit 1 per player. Silver legacy treasure chest, players have a high chance of obtaining a top-tier weapon or equipment piece catered to their class and level, a small chance of obtaining a tier 3 skill or spell book catered to their class, a very small chance of obtaining a piece of epic equipment, and a minute chance of obtaining a unique legacy or legacy weapon catered to their class upon opening this chest. Time limit, 1 natural day. All of God's Domain's Tier 3 players dreamed of unlocking their mana body's full potential and gaining more mana control, but accomplishing either of these tasks was incredibly difficult. Even now, the various superpowers hadn't found a reliable method to accelerate the process and had to rely on their members' talent and skills. And yet, these players had just received a potion that offered an opportunity to make significant progress in both challenges. This was an astoundingly rare opportunity. If they took advantage of this opportunity properly, they might even become peak or apex experts in God's domain. The Silver Legacy treasure chest was just as astronomically valuable. Even with crappy luck, the worst item they would obtain was a top-tier weapon or equipment piece suited for their classes and levels. Such a weapon or piece of equipment would provide a massive boost to their combat power, and if they got lucky, they might even acquire a piece of epic equipment. When the guild leader finds out about our rewards after working with Zero Wing, he'll likely laugh himself mad, Blue Rainbow said, sighing ruefully as she gazed at the open treasure chest before her. Her Silver Legacy treasure chest had granted a piece of level 115 dark gold equipment, yet this was the worst possible outcome. Dark Rhapsody had sent over 100 members to participate in Zero Wing's expedition, which meant that their team would return with more than 100 pieces of level 115 dark gold equipment, and that was if everyone had bad luck. To secure such a haul, they'd have to repeatedly raid level 115 team dungeons for more than 20 days. After all, only 100-man Hell Mode team dungeons and above had a chance of dropping dark gold equipment, and the drop rate wasn't even 100%. Yet, they had only tagged along with Zero Wing for a little over 3 days and gained such a bountiful harvest. When she reported this to her guild leader, he'd assumed she was delusional or was acting as a spy for Zero Wing. The situation even dumbfounded Shifeng. The rewards are so abundant. Shifeng could not believe his eyes as he read the system notifications. Unlike everyone else, however, Shifeng wasn't focused on the exotic legacy potion or Silver Legacy treasure chests. Instead, the amount of Poison City reputation points awarded and the fact that they had unlocked the city's exchange merchant had caught his attention. Normally, earning Poison City reputation points was an incredible challenge. Players could only earn so many points by killing the final boss during the Secret Land's first clear. Subsequent kills yielded far less. Hence, players would need a very long time to gain enough points to get access to the exchange merchant. However, once the merchant had activated, players could purchase Poison City's specialty potions, potion recipes, and forging designs for weapons and equipment with magic crystals. The most famous of Poison City's specialty potions had to be the Misfortune Potion. Each bottle cost 1,000 magic crystals. When consumed, players had a 30% chance to gain a 12-hour mana boost, a 60% chance for no effect at all, and a 10% chance to suffer 3 hours of mana deficiency. Unlike the exotic legacy potion, players could consume as many misfortune potions as they wished. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Once players had activated Poison City's exchange merchant and had enough magic crystals, quickly unlocking their mana body's full potential was entirely possible. Unfortunately, the Misfortune Potion was bound on purchase. In other words, only the players that had earned enough Poison City reputation points would have the privilege of using the potion. This was why the various superpowers of Shifeng's previous life had desperately raided Poison City again and again. Now, however, Shifeng's entire team had access to this highly sought-after privilege after clearing the city once. Once he suppressed his excitement over activating the exchange merchant, Shifeng glanced at the last system notification, which only he had received. System, congratulations. For completing the inferior legendary quest, Beginning of the End, with an S-rank clear rating, you have been awarded the Disaster Blade. You may seek out the Crimson-Eyed Sword Saint for legacy guidance once or request the Sword Saint strengthen the Disaster Blade. You have 5 minutes to decide. Chapter 2584, Final Decision, Road to Tier 4. Shifeng could not help but hesitate when he saw the system notification. Both the Legacy Guidance and the Disaster Blade Strengthening were incredibly rare opportunities. Not only would the Legacy Guidance help players unlock their mana body's full potential, but it would also help them reach beyond the 100% threshold. The knowledge a titled Sword Saint like Elvos had was especially valuable. With the Tier 6 gods in seclusion, a titled Sword Saint stood at the very apex of God's domain's powerhouses. Of course, the chance to strengthen the awarded weapon was just as precious. This opportunity involved imbuing one's mana in a weapon, granting the weapon a portion of their abilities. This wouldn't change any of the weapon's attributes, but the weapon's power and skill effects would receive a considerable boost. This could even grant the weapon hidden effects. If a titled Sword Saint imbued an epic weapon like the Disaster Blade with his mana, the weapon would be able to rival fragmented legendary weapons. Even the various superpowers experts would consider such a weapon godly. They'd essentially be able to use it for their entire careers in God's domain. The weapon's level limitation wouldn't be a concern either. It was possible to raise a level 100 plus epic weapon or equipment piece's maximum level through certain means, although it would be more costly with a level 100 plus epic weapon. However, if one could continue to use an epic weapon that rivaled fragmented legendary rank, the cost would be worthwhile. While Shifeng hesitated, he heard the sound of another system notification. System, you have 1 minute remaining. If you fail to make a decision before the time limit has ended, both options will be considered abandoned. With so little time remaining, Shifeng gritted his teeth and approached Elvos. Esteemed Sword Saint, I hope to obtain your legacy guidance, Shifeng earnestly declared. Are you certain? You have already unlocked your mana body, and based on how you accomplished that feat, you must have received legacy guidance from another powerhouse. I doubt my guidance will be of any significant help to you. In contrast, strengthening the Disaster Blade will certainly increase your strength, Elvos calmly informed Shifeng. I am certain, my lord, Shifeng replied, nodding. While he had unlocked his mana body's full potential, 100% wasn't enough for his future goals. He'd only reach greater heights by surpassing that threshold. Every powerhouse trod a different path, and obtaining more legacy guidance would definitely help him break past the 100% threshold. Most importantly, opportunities to receive legacy guidance were incredibly rare. If he missed this chance, he might never find another. Even after learning from the Heavenly Blue Saint's legacy guidance, he had only unlocked his mana body's full potential after combining what he had learned with a God's Heart's effects. Naturally, crossing the 100% threshold was far more difficult than reaching it. If he had to do so on his own, it would take ages before he made a breakthrough. He might never actually succeed. He had an epic ranked mana body, and going beyond 100% at that rank would be much harder than it would be with lower ranks. If he did not have enough help, his chances of making a breakthrough were minuscule at best, even with the help of a God's Heart. Thus, he had no choice. Strengthening the Disaster Blade would give him immediate access to a pseudo-fragmented legendary weapon and boost his combat power, but the Disaster Blade was a fragment of Solomon's sword. Once he found 5 sword fragments, he would have to combine them to reproduce Solomon's sword, which would render the strengthening useless. Moreover, Shifeng now had the fragmented legendary ranked Abyssal Blade. He no longer lagged behind others when it came to weapon standards. More importantly, Tier 3 wasn't the end for true experts, only a transition. Reaching Tier 4 was a far better option than obtaining another fragmented legendary item. As players reached higher levels, the strength differences between tiers would only grow. Sooner or later, the gap would grow so large that not even 1 or 2 fragmented legendary items would make a difference. Shifeng had also reached level 117, only 3 levels away from the level 120 threshold. Level 120. Naturally, the Tier 4 promotion quest would be much harder than the Tier 3 quest. The two weren't even on the same level. The Tier 3 promotion quest would be like a normal mode party dungeon, while the Tier 4 quest would be as challenging as a 100-man, Hell mode team dungeon. There was a qualitative difference between the two. Most mainstream experts were capable of reaching Tier 3. Even if they couldn't do it at level 100, they could complete the quest after reaching level 120 or level 130. Tier 4, however, was a different story. If one truly couldn't complete their Tier 4 promotion quest, they'd never do so, even after reaching level 200. Because of this, Tier 4 experts had been incredibly rare in the past, even among the various superpowers. Anyone that successfully reached Tier 4 instantly became a guild upper echelon. Moreover, completing the Tier 4 promotion quest took a very long time. According to the statistics players had collected in the past, completing a Tier 4 promotion quest could take anywhere between 1 and 2 months. However, Shifeng also had to face the Silver Divine Dragon, Auerbach's trial, so he was in a rush. If he couldn't reach Tier 4 before he had to undertake the Divine Dragon's trial, his chances of clearing the trial would be all but zero. Unfortunately, he couldn't afford to lose Auerbach due to the many benefits the Divine Dragon's companion enjoyed. It had also helped him secure a foothold on the Western continent. In his current state, Shifeng estimated that his chances of completing the Tier 4 promotion quest were only around 10% or 20%. He had no choice but to grab a hold of whatever opportunities that would help him increase his chances as soon as possible. "It seems you have already decided on your path," Elvos said, and he seemed to look at the swordsman before him in a different way. He no longer viewed Shifeng as a weaker being, but as an equal. He then retrieved a crystal ball and handed it to Shifeng, saying, "This is the experience I have gained over the years. I hope it will be of some help." After handing Shifeng the crystal ball, Elvos transformed into a streak of light and vanished from Poison City. The 2 Tier 4 NPCs who had accompanied him also disappeared, and the dull grey longsword Crotia had wielded returned to the fountain. Removing the disaster blade from the fountain, Shifeng stored it in his bag. He had no intention of using the weapon at all. Unlike ordinary weapons, the disaster blade would convert its user's mana into dense death energy, which would affect everyone that came into contact with it, aside from the user. Just having the weapon passively equipped would influence the carrier's surroundings. The weapon's properties made it utterly unsuitable for ordinary players. Only dark players that preferred to work solo could wield the blade properly. This was another reason that Shifeng had declined the chance to strengthen the disaster blade. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU, Guild Leader, we've finished collecting the boss's loot, Aqua Rose excitedly reported once Shifeng had finished his conversation with Elvos. We've gained quite a harvest this time. Aside from the fragmented legendary ranked mage robes, Undead's Will, we've acquired 2 epic weapons, a staff and a dagger. The complete nether set, a Tier 3 set equipment for magical classes, also dropped, as well as a bunch of materials and recipes. According to your instructions, we held an internal auction for the epic weapons. Blue Frost won the staff, while Flying Shadow won the dagger. What should we do with the Undead's Will and Tier 3 set equipment? Give the Undead's Will to Blue Frost. He still has to command the situation in the Dark Denver. It'll make things easier for him when he has to stand up against the various superpowers, Shifeng said after giving the matter some thought. Before Shifeng and Aqua Rose could continue their conversation, though, Dark Rhapsody's Blue Rainbow approached Shifeng. Worried, she informed him, "Guild Leader Black Flame, I've just received a report stating that Demon's Heart's Alliance team has reached the first floor's 3rd boss and begun the raid. By the looks of it, they have a very high chance of taking it down. The Ancient Gods Tower's 1st floor had 4 bosses in total. If Demon's Heart's Alliance managed to defeat the 3rd boss, they were almost guaranteed to defeat the final boss, as well. Their raiding speed is astonishing." Shifeng was similarly surprised to hear this. Each of the Ancient Gods Tower's floors was as large as a small resource map. Finding the bosses wasn't easy. However, Shifeng chuckled and assured her, "Fortunately, we've completed our task here. It's time we return." Chapter 2585, Small Problem, Raid begins. Cold Spring Forest, Stone Forest City. After acquiring the Disaster Blade, Shifeng decided to leave Poison City immediately, using a return scroll to teleport back to Stone Forest City's Freedom Hotel. As he and his team appeared in the hotel lobby, they attracted a lot of attention from the hotel's guests. Although most of the team members had hidden their statistics and auras under black cloaks, some hadn't. As a result, a heavy pressure bore down on the players in the lobby when the team returned. It was even stronger than that of level 110 Great Lords, with some players radiating even more pressure than level 110 Grand Lords. Crap. Aren't these players' auras a little too strong? They feel even stronger than superpowers teams I've met before. Who are these people? Look, those NPCs are acting so respectfully before the swordsman in the lead. Could that be the grinding team Black Flame led out of the city earlier? You might be right. Usually, those NPCs are even indifferent toward gold members. I suspect they'd only show respect to someone of Black Flame's standing. The players in the lobby fell into a heated discussion about Shifeng's team, and many independent players watched on in envy. Now that Zero Wing controlled the Dark World's teleportation gate, Stone Forest City was officially a sacred leveling ground for regular players. Countless players from various kingdoms and empires swarmed toward the city. Just entering the city had become a problem, not to mention renting a room in the Freedom Hotel. Zero Wing's members, however, did not have these problems. They didn't have to stand in line to enter the city or fight for a room in the Freedom Hotel. Their guild had already reserved rooms for its members. Moreover, Zero Wing's normal members received a 40% discount if paid for their rooms with GCPs, while core members received a 50% discount. These were the reasons that more players constantly sought to join the guild. And to ensure that the guild could continue its normal operations while providing the same benefits, Zero Wing had further increased the recruitment requirements. Countless players regretted not joining sooner. Meanwhile, it wasn't long after Shifeng's team had returned that the various powers within the city heard about it. Black Flame's finally back. Dawn Dominance, who had concealed himself with a black cloak and rested in one of the Freedom Hotel's rooms, sneered as he read the latest report from his subordinate. It seems he's increased the combat power Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's members by quite a bit. It's a pity that he's too late. Demon's Heart's team has almost pinpointed the third boss's weaknesses. It's only a matter of time before they defeat it and move on to the final boss. Guild leader, Flaming Light has reported that those people are now in Cold Spring Forest. Should we leave? A level 109, Tier 3 Elementalist asked from beside Dawn Dominance. Good. Yes, we'll head over immediately. I want to see just what kind of powerful individuals Flaming Light has invited to declare that he can help world domination take control of the Dark World, Dawn Dominance said, nodding. Following which, Dawn Dominance left Stone Forest City with his subordinates, making his way to Cold Spring Forest's outer region. At the same time, the various superpowers operating secretly in Stone Forest City only snickered at Shifeng's return. So what if Zero Wing controlled the Dark World's teleportation gate? In the end, the Dark World's players would still reach the main continent in droves, and now that Zero Wing was their enemy, the guild would suffer once they arrived. Nowhere would be safe for Zero Wing's members outside of Cold Spring Forest. Upon his return, Shifeng instructed the NPC manager to arrange an advanced lounge for the team to rest. Guild leader Black Flame, Demon's Heart has already begun to raid the third boss, yet you want to rest here. Blue Rainbow anxiously complained. Although they were fatigued from their trip to Poison City, players would recover a significant fraction of their stamina and concentration when they leveled up. After that final boss, they had all leveled twice, so the team was in relatively good condition. They were more than capable of starting their raid in the Ancient God's Tower. Yet, Shifeng had told them to rest for now almost as if he were afraid that Demon's Heart didn't have a strong enough lead. No. Your stamina and concentration might be fine, but the secret land's death energy is still corroding your bodies. The ancient god's tower also has powerful foreign energy. On the off chance that these energies cause too much damage before you clear the trial, all of your efforts will go to waste. It'd be better to rest here for a while, rather than take such a risk. You can use the time to drink the exotic legacy potions you've obtained, as well, Shifeng said, shaking his head. But the time, Shifeng's insistence did nothing to calm Blue Rainbow's worries. The future of their two guilds was at risk. If Demon's Heart's alliance captured the first floor before they could, their guilds wouldn't survive in the dark world for long. I doubt there will be any issues if you take full advantage of that potion, Shifeng said, chuckling. Neither the dropped weapons and equipment nor the awarded legacy skill points were the team's greatest reward. Instead, it was the exotic legacy potions. When players normally slew Poison City's bosses, each boss only dropped 1 or 2 exotic legacy potions. Furthermore, those bosses only respawned after 3 days. Knowing this, it was easy to imagine how valuable the potions were. However, because the team had completed the inferior legendary quest, every member had been awarded 1 bottle. Although a single exotic legacy potion might not help someone fully unlock their mana body, in combination with the Freedom Hotel's astounding environment, it would help these players unlock a sizable percentage. That percentage alone would grant a massive boost to their combat power since it tremendously improved their skills and spells power. However, Shifeng's advice confused Blue Rainbow and Elder Gold. What did he mean by, take full advantage? Of course, he had a point. While their consecutive leveling had cleansed them of a portion of the foreign energy, much still remained. If this energy and the energy within the tower corroded too much of their bodies halfway into the raid, they'd be doomed. Blue Rainbow and Elder Gold immediately stopped wasting time. They instructed all of their players to move to the reserved lounge, rest, and consume the exotic legacy potions. In total, the team rested for over an hour. Once they felt refreshed, Blue Rainbow and Elder Gold hurried toward the Dark World's ancient god's tower with their respective guilds' main force members. By the time the group arrived, another 4 hours had passed. The ancient god's tower had 7 floors and was over 1,000 meters tall. Players, whom the Dark World's various powers had stationed to guard the entrance, didn't try to stop the group when Blue Rainbow and Elder Gold arrived. They simply stepped aside and let the force enter the tower, notifying the team within of their arrival. Meanwhile, a 6-meter-tall, level 113 Mythic ranked or lay lifeless before Demon's Heart's team within an ancient city on the ancient god's tower's first floor. Elder Heart, our scouts have located the 4th ancient city, a level 110, tier 3 Dark Ranger reported, approaching Furious Heart. In addition, our brothers at the entrance have informed me that Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's members have entered the tower. They've finally decided to show up. The report surprised Furious Heart. How many people did they send? Are Zero Wings members with them? Their team had already defeated the first floor's 3rd boss and located the final boss. He found it surprising that the 2 guilds would bother to show up now. They must have brought powerful support with them and were confident of surpassing the Alliance team's progress. Just a little over 200. We didn't see any of Zero Wings members or the Outside Worlds players among their team, the Dark Ranger reported. Just a little over 200. Have those guilds lost their minds? For a moment, Furious Heart wondered if he had misheard the Tier 3 Dark Ranger. Demon's Heart's alliance had sent over 1,000 Tier 3 experts just to increase their chances of raiding the ancient god's tower. What could a measly 200-plus Tier 3 experts possibly accomplish? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU, should we send our spies to find out more? The Dark Ranger asked. No need. To think they would dare enter the tower with so few players, do they think this is some kind of playground? Furious Heart said, shaking his head. Chuckling, he continued, let them struggle. They're only fools if they thought they could rely on Zero Wing. Once we finish our raid, we'll make them regret their decision. With that, Furious Heart commanded his team to head toward the final boss. He completely disregarded the matter involving Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society. In the meantime, Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's main force members stopped before the doors to the Ancient Gods Tower's first floor. "Alright, let's start the raid," Blue Rainbow exclaimed, glancing over the team. Chapter 2586, Surpassing Logic, Ancient Gods Tower Unlocked Dark World, Ancient Gods Tower. A team of over 1,000 players fought the wandering barbaric ores as they advanced across a gravel wasteland, but due to the high number of the ores, the team's progress was quite slow. From afar, it looked like the team was drowning in a sea of ores. Aside from the area the players occupied, the barbaric ores covered every inch of the wasteland. Barbaric ore, humanoid creature, High Lord, level 112 HP 570000/57000000, barbaric or warrior, humanoid creature, Great Lord, level 113 HP 140,000/140,000,000, barbaric or captain, humanoid creature, Grand Lord. Level 114 HP 500,000/500,000,000, Elder Heart. Too many monsters are swarming out of the ancient city. If we get any closer, I'm afraid we'll alert the ore guards on the city walls, one of the level 110, tier 3 shield warriors on the front lines called back. Although the first 3 cities had been difficult to raid, none had had this many monsters. The fourth ancient city was home to at least 100,000 ores. If their team hadn't been entirely comprised of tier 3 experts, these barbaric ores and barbaric ore warriors would have long since eliminated them. Why is this city so much harder? Furious Heart frowned, watching the barbaric ore captains on the city walls. Gritting his teeth, he commanded, "Everyone, change formation. Prioritize the ores here before we continue." While their team was more than capable of dealing with level 114 Grand Lords, there were more than 30 Grand Lords stationed on the walls. In the outside world, such a force could effortlessly demolish guild towns. There were simply too many ores and or warriors for a team of their size to handle. With Furious Heart's command hanging in the air, the team moved out of their V formation into a block formation. The MTs and melee players held back the swarming ores, while the ranged players attacked from within the block's inner layer. Once everyone was in position, the team's magic class players began to chant long incantations. More than 100 gigantic magic arrays appeared above the ore force, blotting out the sky. 4 seconds later, the arrays had taken shape and rained fire, ice, and lightning down on the ores below. Boom! 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 Deafening explosions echoed across the gravel wasteland. By the time the last large-scale destruction spell came to an end, the surrounding terrain had transformed. Easily over 4,000 barbaric ore and barbaric or warrior corpses littered the deformed land. Nice! A team with plenty of large-scale destruction spells is awesome. I know, right? My usual team only has a few people with tier 3 large-scale destruction spells, yet we currently have over 100. I doubt even superpowers can field such a powerful team. It's a pity that the tower's monsters don't drop any loot and grant almost no EXP, otherwise, we would have hit the jackpot. The various major powers experts were astonished at the carnage around them. They knew that Demon's Heart had gone around the Dark World, borrowing manpower from the various major powers to raid the Ancient Gods Tower and prioritizing players with tier 3 large-scale destruction spells. However, only a few players at a time had cast these spells during their prior battles. They hadn't been allowed to cast these spells simultaneously. The shock they felt after watching over 100 large-scale destruction spells go off at once was on a completely new level. The team members also realized how important players with such devastating spells were. They had to admit that these magical class players were walking cannons in large-scale combat. I wonder what Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's people are thinking. I can't believe they're trying to race us to the final boss with just 200 plus players. Their full team is smaller than the number of players we have with Tier 3 large-scale destruction spells, a Tier 3 ranger said, laughing at the destruction around him. I doubt they have any idea how many large-scale destruction spellcasters we have on our team. If they knew, they'd likely just give up, a Tier 3 elementalist added, chuckling. Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society were formidable guilds in the Dark World, but they weren't strong enough to compete with the combined might of the Otherworld's various major powers. Even the weakest member on the Alliance team was a Refinement Realm expert in full level 105 fine gold equipment. Even the various superpowers only had a few experts with such high equipment standards, yet every member of the Alliance team wore such equipment. How, exactly, did Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society plan to compete with them? Enough chit-chat. We need to eliminate these barbaric ores quickly. If we take our time, and they respawn during the boss fight, we'll be in trouble. Furious Heart shouted, chuckling. He hadn't been worried about the two guilds' attempt to raid the Ancient God's Tower since the very beginning. Not even Zero Wing could help them now. Not only did the Alliance team consist of peak combatants from the Dark World's various major powers, but it also had support from the main continent's various superpowers. Finally, after over a dozen hours of fighting, Furious Heart and his team had obliterated the barbaric or army on the gravel wasteland and in the ancient city. Now, only the final boss and a few guards remained. Barbaric or king, humanoid creature, archaic species, mythic, level 114 HP 3,500,000/3,500,000,000, barbaric or guard, humanoid creature, specialized Grand Lord, level 114 HP 600,000/600,000,000. When they saw the barbaric or king and 8 barbaric or guards in the ancient tower within the city's heart, Furious Heart and his companions gasped. An ordinary mythic boss was already a major challenge due to their incredibly high basic attributes and combat standards. However, a mythic-ranked archaic species was even more powerful in both regards. Meanwhile, the system would enhance one aspect of specialized monsters. In other words, they could transcend tiers in a specific way. Hence, specialized Grand Lord's combat power could sometimes rival that of ordinary mythic monsters. Now, their team had to face 8 pseudo-mythic monsters, and including the boss, a total of 9 Tier 4 opponents. This force could even destroy guild cities. Elder Heart, the guards, and the boss are too close to each other. If we attack one, all 9 will respond, a level 110, Tier 3 assassin from World Domination warned, frowning. Then we have no choice but to fight them all at the same time. Once we begin, lure the 8 monster guards aside and kill them first. We'll focus on the boss afterward, Furious Heart decided after giving the matter some thought. His teammates nodded when they heard his plan. While quite a few mobs surrounded the boss, they had over 1,000 players and could easily afford to split up their combat power to distract the boss, while the rest finished off the guards, who had significantly less HP. Once the plan had been agreed upon, everyone got to work. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Just as the team's MTs were about to split up and lure the boss and its 8 guards, however, they all heard the sound of a series of system notifications. Ancient God's Tower Region System Announcement: a team has successfully completed the trial of the Ancient God's Tower's first floor. The teleportation arrays on the first floor have now been unlocked. Ancient God's Tower Region System Announcement: a team has successfully completed the trial of the Ancient God's Tower's first floor. All players on the first floor will be automatically teleported to the first floor's inner sanctum in 3 minutes. Please make the necessary preparations. How is this possible? After hearing the system announcements, the central tower went quiet. Chapter 2587, One Step Ahead. Frightening levels. We haven't even started on the boss, yet the trial's been cleared. Did another team get ahead of us? Did some power send a team into the tower in secret before we got here? Impossible. No one can field a team powerful enough to clear the tower without anyone noticing. No one on the Alliance team could believe their ears when they heard the system announcement. At the same time, they all wondered which team had just conquered the ancient god's tower's first floor. But even after racking their brains for a long moment, they couldn't think of anyone who could pull it off. They had first-hand experience with the first floor trial, so they knew just how challenging it was. Not only would a team need at least 1,000 Tier 3 Refinement Realm experts, but they'd also have to be fully armed with top-tier equipment. Their Alliance team had even been forced to borrow their top-tier weapons and equipment from the main continent's various superpowers. Procuring enough of these items was simply impossible for the Dark World's various major powers. Could it be Dark Rhapsody in Deity Society's team? Elder Heart, the level 110, Tier 3 assassin from World Domination wondered. Impossible. Furious Heart's reply was instinctive. They only entered the tower less than half a day ago. With just 200 plus players, they won't even be able to handle the outer area's monsters, much less the monsters within the 4 ancient cities. I guess you're right. Even with top-tier equipment, they'd need a lot of time to figure out the boss's patterns and weaknesses. They'll be lucky to raid the first boss so quickly, not to mention all 4, the assassin said. He silently scolded himself for being stupid enough to think Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society could be responsible for capturing the first floor. Since they couldn't do it, who just did? Everyone in the Dark World knew that Dark Rhapsody, Deity Society, and World Domination were the 3 strongest guilds in their otherworld, and no other guild could compare. Hence, he found it hard to imagine that some hidden power, capable of accomplishing such a feat, existed. I don't know who foiled our plans, but it's fine as long as it wasn't Dark Rhapsody or Deity Society, Furious Heart commented after taking a moment to calm his rage. We'll figure out who they are when the system teleports us to the inner sanctum. The appearance of a third faction certainly surprised Furious Heart, but it wasn't something to make a fuss over. Plenty of major corporations had invested in God's domain, and there were bound to be some who secretly developed their powers, waiting for an opportunity to shine. That was, after all, Demon's Heart's situation. This wasn't the worst possible outcome. With how much influence Demon's Heart and the various superpowers possessed, they weren't afraid that this third faction wouldn't cooperate. Rather, allying with them would be the wisest move this faction could make. The other powers members nodded in agreement. Their team represented the majority of the Dark World's major powers. Refusing to cooperate would be tantamount to suicide. The ancient god's tower wasn't the only way out of the Dark World, and players could contest for its ruling rights once a month. The easiest way to determine the tower's new owner once that month was up was to host a battle between players, not a simple contest of who could raid the tower the fastest. Shortly after Furious Heart fell silent, a teleportation array appeared under everyone's feet, sending all of them to the tower's inner sanctum. Ancient God's Tower, first floor's central hall. A flash of white light filled the central hall's plaza as all players on the first floor teleported in. The first floor's central hall was roughly the size of 3 sports stadiums. Aside from the stone golems that maintained security, the hall contained a large number of hotels, restaurants, and shops. This place could easily accommodate 100,000 players. Quick! Find those people. Furious Heart commanded as soon as he arrived. Although getting a clear view of the plaza with a glance was possible, they couldn't do anything to stop the third faction's members from fleeing. Players weren't allowed to fight within the ancient god's tower's inner sanctum, and players could freely use return scrolls in this area. However, the Alliance team members were stunned by what they found in their search for the mysterious third faction. Aside from Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's 200-plus members and themselves, the plaza was empty. Where are they? Furious Heart also looked around, confused. Have they already escaped? No. Impossible. Everyone teleported at the same time. Even if they used return scrolls the moment they arrived, we should have still seen them. While Furious Heart and his team frantically searched for this third faction, two figures approached them. However, Furious Heart and the others instinctively ignored them. The two figures were none other than Dark Rhapsody's Blue Rainbow and Deity Society's Elder Gold. "Long time, no see, Elder Heart," Blue Rainbow greeted Furious Heart as she walked up to him. "Long time, no see. If I recall, we met only a few days ago," Furious Heart rudely responded. He had visited the two guilds personally to persuade them to join with Demon's Heart. Blue Rainbow had received him when he visited Dark Rhapsody, but both guilds had foolishly and definitively refused Demon's Heart's goodwill, siding with Zero Wing instead. Furious Heart didn't doubt that these two were here to ridicule the Alliance team for failing to capture the Ancient God's Tower's first floor. "Is such behavior necessary, Elder Heart?" "I am only here to pass on a message from Guild Leader Black Flame," Blue Rainbow said, unfazed by man's attitude. "Relay a message?" "I hadn't realized that Dark Rhapsody's honorary elder had become Zero Wing's errand girl." "The world really has changed," Furious Heart said, sneering. "That's right, the world has changed. Some people just refuse to acknowledge it," Blue Rainbow responded, not angered in the least by Furious Heart's provocation. Chuckling, she continued, "Guild Leader Black Flame's message is simple. Develop yourselves quietly, and don't cause unnecessary trouble. If you refuse, there will be consequences." "Consequences? With just Zero Wing's strength?" "Demon's Heart's foundation and strength are leagues beyond what Zero Wing can imagine." Furious Heart growled disdainfully. "While I admit that we failed to secure the first floor's first clear, can't the same be said of you?" "The same of us?" The question surprised Blue Rainbow. After a moment, she simply shook her head before turning and leaving without another word. Elder Gold, who had stood beside her, just chuckled before he walked off. "What are you laughing about?" Furious Heart bellowed after the older man. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. He didn't receive a reply, however, and in the next moment, Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's members pulled return scrolls from their bag as they prepared to leave the Ancient God's Tower. Just as Furious Heart was about to say something else, he heard a voice. "Something's not right, Elder Heart. Look at their levels," the assassin from World Domination exclaimed. Everyone from the Alliance team turned to examine the other players' levels, and what they saw left them utterly flabbergasted. Level 115. How is that possible? Chapter 2588, Inhuman Abilities, Dark World Shaken. Furious Heart was dumbfounded at the levels of Blue Rainbow and the others. Even the peak experts of God's domain had only reached level 110 and were still a far cry from level 111. Nevertheless, the majority of Dark Rhapsody's and Deity Society's members present here were at level 115 already, with even the lowest leveled player among them at level 114. How are their levels so high? What did Zero Wing do? Furious Heart's eyes were wide with astonishment as he gaped at Blue Rainbow and Elder Gold. Furious Heart had personally met Blue Rainbow and Elder Gold just a few days ago. Back then, both of them were only at level 109. Now, in less than a week, they had actually leveled up 6 times and reached level 115. The only explanation Furious Heart could think of for this situation was the expedition Dark Rhapsody's and Deity Society's main force members had gone on with Zero Wing. However, no matter how he cudgeled his brains, he simply couldn't figure out how Zero Wing could fast-track the two guilds' main force members leveling that much. Past level 100, leveling up became incredibly difficult. Even Tier 3 experts would need 2 or 3 consecutive days of relentless grinding to level up once. However, the two guilds' main force members had disappeared for just a little more than 3 days, yet every one of them had gained around 5 or 6 levels, which meant they leveled up nearly twice a day. Even a super guild mobilizing all of its available strength to help just one individual level up couldn't accomplish such a feat. Zero Wing, on the other hand, had done so for more than 200 players. Just what kind of resources and manpower would such a feat entail? Elder Heart, look at their equipment, the Tier 3 assassin from World Domination said, pointing at the gear of Dark Rhapsody's and Deity Society's members. When Furious Heart did as the assassin suggested, he gasped in shock. Am I dreaming? Furious Heart muttered. Previously, his attention had been fully occupied with searching for the supposed third faction that had captured the ancient god's tower, hence, he had instinctively ignored the members of Dark Rhapsody in Deity Society. However, after scrutinizing the two guilds' members, he noticed that the majority of them wore secret silver equipment mixed in with some fine gold and dark gold equipment. In terms of rank, the two guilds' members' equipment couldn't even compete against that of the Alliance team members, who were fully geared in fine gold equipment. However, Furious Heart still felt an incredibly powerful pressure coming from the two guilds' members. Logically, this shouldn't be possible even with a 5-level disparity. The only explanation Furious Heart could think of for this situation was that the two guilds' members boasted level 115 plus weapons and equipment. In terms of basic attributes, level 110 secret silver equipment was roughly equal with level 105 fine gold equipment. Meanwhile, although players would gain some basic attributes from leveling up 5 times, the increase wouldn't rest carrot in a huge gap in basic attributes. At the very least, there needed to be a 1-rank difference for such a disparity to exist. Hence, the only logical explanation was that the secret silver equipment Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's members were using was level 115. Currently, level 110 equipment was incredibly rare even for the various superpowers, while level 115 equipment was something nobody dared to dream of obtaining right now. After all, obtaining level 115 equipment required killing level 115 plus monsters. And generally, only monsters at the Great Lord rank or above had a chance of dropping secret, silver equipment. Meanwhile, all 200-plus members of Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's team were fully geared in level 115 secret, silver equipment or better. This was simply ridiculous. Guild leader, it seems we really made the wrong choice. The level 110 assassin from World Domination could not help a bitter smile as he gazed at Blue Rainbow and the others. A third faction capturing the ancient god's tower? That was merely their arbitrary wish. In reality, the ones responsible for capturing the ancient god's tower were none other than the joint team of Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society. However, the only reason why the two guilds succeeded was Zero Wing's help. Meanwhile, just because of Zero Wing's help, Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society had gone from being inferior to World Domination to surpassing World Domination by a large margin. In fact, Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society were now at a level where World Domination could only look up to them in awe. With the two guilds having captured the ancient god's tower, it was already obvious that they would experience tremendous development in the Dark World. In the future, the two guilds would definitely become the rulers of the Dark World. Meanwhile, after their conquest of the ancient god's tower, Blue Rainbow and Elder Gold did not place any more attention on the tower, making their way back to their respective headquarters to rest instead. After all, they didn't need to manage the tower. Currently, the only option the Dark World's various powers and players had to leave the Dark World was the teleportation gate connected to Cold Spring Forest. As for using the ancient god's tower's teleportation arrays, that would simply be a waste of time and resources. After all, they would first have to transit through another otherworld to get to the main continent. Shortly after Blue Rainbow and the others left the Central Hall, news of Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society capturing the ancient god's tower also started spreading like wildfire across the entire Dark World. For a time, the Dark World was in an uproar. How is this possible? Didn't they say that Demon's Heart allied with the various major powers to raid the ancient god's tower? Those two guilds are that strong now. Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society actually took control of the ancient god's tower. With this, it seems that everyone in the dark world will have to listen to those two guilds. Seeing as not many people are joining those two guilds now, let's use this opportunity to join them quickly, while we can still do so easily. At the news of Dark Rhapsody in Deity Society's achievement, some players celebrated while others felt disappointed. Nobody had ever entertained the thought of such an outcome. The alliance that Demon's Heart formed with the Dark World's various major powers had actually suffered defeat. This outcome solidified Dark Rhapsody in Deity Society's position as the top two guilds of the Dark World. Now, the dissatisfaction of the Dark World's many players no longer mattered. Nobody would be able to stop the two guilds' development, trying to do so would simply be suicide. After all, the two guilds could easily prevent their enemies from ever setting foot outside the Dark World. While players could grind and level up inside the Dark World, it was sorely lacking in level 100+ resources. Players restricted to grinding in the Dark World would experience extremely slow leveling speeds. If this situation continued over a long period, the gap between the two guilds' members and those barred from leaving the Dark World would only widen. Meanwhile, among the Dark World's players, the ones most surprised by this outcome would have to be the members of Dark Rhapsody in Deity Society, especially the upper echelons and guild leaders of the two guilds. However, what truly surprised the upper echelons and guild leaders of the two guilds wasn't the successful capture of the Ancient Gods Tower's first floor but the levels and equipment of Blue Rainbow, Elder Gold, and the others. With such levels and equipment, no power would be capable of contending against their two guilds even on the main continent, much less in the Dark World. However, only Blue Rainbow, Elder Gold, and the members of the two guilds' main forces knew that, in reality, their greatest gains from partnering with Zero Wing weren't these things but the exotic legacy potions they obtained. Due to the exotic legacy potion and the Freedom Hotel's effects, every member of their team had successfully unlocked 40% of their mana body's potential on average. As for Blue Rainbow and Elder Gold, the two of them had even managed to release 60%, only 40% away from fully unlocking their mana bodies. Cold Spring Forest, Stone Forest City, Freedom Hotel, Guild Leader, this is terrible. Now, not only have Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society taken control of the Ancient Gods Tower, but their main force members are also far ahead than ours in both levels and equipment. At this rate, I'm afraid, a level 110, Tier 3 assassin from World Domination said worriedly to Dawn Dominance, who was currently resting inside the Freedom Hotel, through a video chat. It seems I really underestimated Zero Wing. I never thought that it would possess such capabilities. Those two guilds sure have found themselves a powerful backer this time, Dawn Dominance remarked, his mood indescribably calm despite having read his subordinate's report regarding Dark Rhapsody in Deity Society's achievements. His reaction made it seem as if this matter was completely unrelated to him. In fact, a faint smile even graced his face right now. Guild Leader. The Tier 3 assassin was confused when he saw Dawn Dominance's reaction. I admit that Zero Wing is very powerful. However, Zero Wing's era will end very soon, Dawn Dominance said, chuckling. Guild Leader, do you have some method to deal with Zero Wing and the two other guilds? The assassin asked, curious. Zero Wing, Dark Rhapsody, and Deity Society currently controlled all the exits from the Dark World. The daily growth of the three guilds was no laughing matter. He found it truly hard to imagine that World Domination had some way to oppose Zero Wing. Take a look at this, Dawn Dominance said, his smile widening as he took out a dark gray crystal ball and displayed it through the video chat. As soon as Dawn Dominance took out the crystal ball, the space around it started darkening, the corrupted space giving off an indescribably strange feeling. In fact, even space itself started cracking, due to the evil energy the crystal ball released. What dense energy! It can practically rival the energy in 7 Luminaries crystals, the assassin exclaimed in shock. I need you to do something for me. Take this crystal and harvest the lives of the Dark World's players. Harvest as many as you can. Once this crystal has collected enough energy, it'll be the end of Zero Wing and those two other guilds. Dawn Dominance said. Understood. I'll get it done right away. The assassin nodded before disconnecting the call. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. In the meantime, when the main continent's various superpowers found out that Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society had taken control of the ancient god's tower, they could not help feeling surprised at Zero Wing's capabilities. As for Shifeng, after resting sufficiently, he returned to Star Moon Kingdom's White River City. White River City, Adventurers Association, 2nd floor VIP reception room, Lord Bronze Legatee, how may I be of service? Senior Administrator Lorraine asked, smiling as she entered the room. I wish to transfer the Lost Town under my name to the Ten Saints Empire's Demon Wolf Mountain Range. May I know if that is possible? Shifeng asked her. The loot from raiding Poison City included not only excellent equipment and materials but also a town transfer order for level 100+ maps. Now that Stone Forest City had already taken root in Cold Spring Forest, it should not be moved casually. However, to ensure that he could travel between the two main continents consistently, he needed to establish a stronghold in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range as well. Moreover, this stronghold had to remain a secret. After giving the matter some thought, he felt that the Lost Town was the best option. Chapter 2589, Medium Teleportation Point. The Lost Town served as Zero Wing's secret stronghold for nurturing talents. Even now, very few guild members knew of its existence. Generally, only core members with great potential had the qualifications to set foot into the town. Moreover, these core experts needed to undergo multiple inspections before receiving the approval to enter the Lost Town. After all, the extraordinary tower's function was simply crucial. Now that Shifeng wished to establish a stable teleportation point inside the Demon Wolf Mountain Range, the Lost Town was his best option. Firstly, the teleportation point linking the two main continents could not be disclosed to too many people. Hence, the stronghold established in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range should have as few players operating within it as possible. Secondly, the size of the stronghold should not be too large, to limit the manpower and resources required for its upkeep. Otherwise, concealing it would be very difficult. Other powers keeping an eye on Zero Wing would definitely grow suspicious if a significant portion of the guild's funds was disappearing for no good reason. The Lost Town fulfilled both conditions perfectly. Of course, the act of transferring a guild town to a level 100+ neutral map was also incredibly insane. After all, the dangers lurking in level 100+ neutral maps were no laughing matter. If the guild town in question lacked sufficient defenses, it might not survive the first monster tide that assaulted it. However, with Zero Wing's current strength, so long as Shifeng did not move the Lost Town too deep into the Demon Wolf Mountain Range, defending it from the periodic monster tides was still feasible. Lord Bronze Legatee, transferring your town to the Demon Wolf Mountain Range is very dangerous. Once your town is transferred there, it will no longer be protected by any kingdom or empire. Are you sure you wish to go through with the transfer? Lorraine asked. I'm sure, Shifeng replied with a nod. Very well. Please specify your exact transfer location, Lorraine said as she took out a map of the Demon Wolf Mountain Range. Let's move it here, Shifeng said as he pointed at a gravel hill in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner area. In the past, the Demon Wolf Mountain Range had been incredibly famous in God's domain for having two teleportation points connected to the western continent. However, unlike the first teleportation point Shifeng secured, which was the magic gate hidden beneath the frozen lake, the second teleportation point was a medium teleportation point with special circumstances. The medium teleportation point was inside a demon wolf den. Players that wished to activate the teleportation array there had to clear out the monsters within the den first. However, the monsters inside this den would respawn periodically. Moreover, they would grow stronger with each respawn. In addition, nobody could truly take control of the teleportation point, so once the gate was activated, any player could make use of the gate so long as they had sufficient magic crystals. Due to this reason, the various superpowers had desperately fought to monopolize this teleportation point. The fires of war had never once ceased after the teleportation gate's discovery. Even after a decade had passed in God's domain, the situation surrounding the teleportation point remained extremely volatile. Currently, Shifeng was urgently trying to secure more teleportation points linking the two main continents. However, he would need to invest a lot of time if he wished to activate and secure the other teleportation points he knew of, as activating those teleportation points involved a series of quests. Either that or the teleportation points were small ones that could send only a handful of players with each use. Hence, the medium teleportation point located in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range was his only option. Moreover, the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's medium teleportation point was in a level 120+ area, which was still a blind spot for current superpowers. He could use this opportunity to thoroughly stabilize his rule over the area. Thus, going for this teleportation point wasn't a particularly bad choice. Location verified. Please produce your town transfer order. In addition, you have to pay a transfer fee of 80,000 gold, Lorraine said. Once you complete the payment, we will transfer your town to the desired location as soon as possible. 80,000. Shifeng was astonished at this price. Although transferring guild towns and cities to level 100+ neutral maps generally cost a lot of money, the transfer fees were scaled, based on the target's rank. Meanwhile, the lost town was merely a basic town, yet it cost 80,000 gold to transfer it to the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner area. This was completely outside of his expectations. If he were transferring a basic city instead of a basic town, the transfer would most likely bankrupt him. That's right. Not only is the location you have selected far, but it is also somewhat special. Hence, the transfer fee is slightly more expensive. However, please rest assured that the additional charges we collect are fair and reasonable, Lorraine said, smiling. All right. Here is the town transfer order and 80,000 gold, Shifeng answered as he passed the document and the funds to Lorraine. He inwardly celebrated the fact that Stone Forest City had been raking in the profits recently. Despite the substantial increase in Zero Wing's daily expenditure due to the number of guild experts increasing to 220,000, the guild still managed to save up a liquid fund of 170,000 gold. Otherwise, he really wouldn't have been able to afford the transfer fee this time. Payment received. The transfer will be done in 30 minutes. You have 1 day to complete the handover procedures. Our security personnel will leave the site after 1 day, so please complete the handover procedures as soon as possible, Lorraine reminded after receiving payment. At the same time as Lorraine finished speaking, the lost town, in the distant boneless land, suddenly disappeared. Now, only a bunch of confused Zero Wing members remained in the barren wasteland. And in no time at all, Shifeng received a call request from Aqua Rose. Guild leader, big trouble. The lost town disappeared. Aqua Rose reported anxiously. The lost town was Zero Wing's secret training ground for nurturing expert players. Although the town currently housed only several hundred players, all the experts that successfully reached the Truth Realm were more adept at fighting against monsters than even Refinement Realm experts. The only problem was that the players being nurtured at the lost town were all very low-leveled newcomers. The majority of them hadn't even reached level 100 yet, much less tier 3. Nevertheless, so long as these players caught up in levels and tiers, they would become mainstays of Zero Wing. And with the help of these players, Zero Wing would finally gain the qualifications to stand toe-to-toe with the various superpowers. Hence, the lost town's sudden disappearance would have a significant impact on Zero Wing's future development. It's fine. I did it, Shifeng said, chuckling. Shifeng's words confused Aqua Rose. You made it disappear. The lost town was serving its purpose just perfectly, so why did Shifeng make it disappear right when Zero Wing was rapidly expanding its scale of operations? The guild needed to nurture plenty of expert players to ensure normal operations. Emicham. I transferred the lost town to the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner area. In the future, we wouldn't have to worry about the trainees sacrificing their levels to improve their combat standards, Shifeng said, nodding. The Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner area? Isn't that a level 120 grinding spot? Aqua Rose's eyes widened in shock when she heard Shifeng's statement. She felt that he was simply insane for carrying out the transfer. Level 100+ maps were incredibly dangerous. This was especially so for the Demon Wolf Mountain Range. Transferring Stone Forest City into Cold Spring Forest had been incredibly risky. Fortunately, there was the Night Division. With the Night Division's strength and the city's defensive capabilities, they were able to cope with the monster tides. In fact, the Night Division even took the initiative to wipe out any approaching monster tides. The Lost Town, on the other hand, was only a basic town. Its defensive capabilities were pitifully weak. Even though Zero Wing had strengthened the town repeatedly and constructed plenty of defense turrets and arrow towers as well as a defensive wall, the Lost Town was still a basic town. Without the protection of an NPC kingdom or empire, it would face destruction very quickly. Relax. It should be able to hold against the monster tides, Shifeng said, understanding Aqua Rose's concern. But that's a level 120 neutral map. Despite Shifeng's reassurance, Aqua Rose still could not help worrying. After all, the Lost Town did not have the protection of a Night Division. Right, how is the collection of the disabled guards coming along? Shifeng asked, changing the topic. The collection of the disabled guards is progressing relatively smoothly. We have over 100 of them already. As per your instructions, we gathered only those with growth potentials above 20. However, even the strongest one only has 32 growth potential, Aqua Rose said. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU that many already? Shifeng was surprised when he heard Aqua Rose's report. Gather them all at the residence immediately. It's about time we put them to work. Previously, although he had strengthened plenty of personal guards using the Ancient Gods literature fragment, they were still far from sufficient for Zero Wing's needs. However, collecting the soul essences necessary for soul strengthening was not an easy task. Moreover, NPCs with high growth potential were incredibly rare. Since locating the last batch of NPCs until now, Zero Wing had barely found any NPCs with high growth potential. This could also be said to be the literature fragment's limitation. However, the Tree of Life's Water of Life was different. Not only could it raise the growth potential of NPCs slightly, but it could also resurrect dead NPCs or heal heavily injured NPCs within a short time. The Water of Life was mana from heaven for NPCs that had their growth potential drastically reduced due to heavy injuries. After Shifeng finished speaking, he took out a guild transfer scroll and immediately teleported back to Stone Forest City. Chapter 2590, Water of Life's Effects. Stone Forest City, Zero Wing's residence. Inside the residence's large conference room, over 100 NPCs exuding despondent and listless auras currently stood in line. These NPCs were either crippled or civilians with extremely weak life auras. As for clothing, they wore either battered armor or tattered linen clothes. And even the highest leveled person among them was just a little over level 50, with the lowest leveled person being level 20. Due to the presence of these NPCs, the gorgeous conference room looked more like a refugee camp. Guild leader, everyone's here, Aqua Rose reported as she approached Shifeng. Do you really plan on using the precious Water of Life on these people? At this point, she had already found out about the Tree of Life planted in the Freedom Hotel's top-floor courtyard because, during Shifeng's absence, 3 other people were tasked with ensuring the courtyard's normal operation. She was one of those people. Back when she first saw the fragmented divine artifact ranked Tree of Life, her mind had frozen in shock. She had never dreamed that the guild she belonged to was so amazing. Currently, the various superpowers of God's domain didn't even possess legendary items yet, let alone fragmented divine artifacts. Zero Wing, however, had a fragmented divine artifact. Moreover, the Tree of Life could even produce 17 drops of Water of Life daily. The Water of Life was an incredibly precious item that was obtainable only by luck in God's domain. After all, the Water of Life could be used to resurrect dead NPCs. For the various powers who were extremely worried about their personal guards dying, the Water of Life was an absolute treasure. After all, personal guards were far more powerful than players, capable of feats that were beyond current players' capabilities. Only, obtaining a few drops of Water of Life was an incredibly difficult task even for the superpowers. As a result, the superpowers did not dare to casually field their personal guards on risky operations. Zero Wing, however, produced 17 drops of Water of Life each day. Hence, they wouldn't have to worry about losing their powerful personal guards at all and could freely deploy these NPCs on all kinds of quests and expeditions. However, even for the current Zero Wing, the daily production of 17 drops of Water of Life was still a little too low for the guild's needs. If they needed to heal these 100+ NPCs, they would have to expend the entire stockpile they had accumulated thus far. It might be fine if they were spending all their Water of Life on healing NPCs with high growth potential, but the NPCs gathered here were all NPCs with very poor growth potential. Even if they recovered to peak condition, their growth potential wouldn't increase by much. Using the Water of Life on these NPCs would simply be a waste. I want to test my luck, Shifeng said, smiling when he saw the reluctance on Aqua Rose's face. Test your luck. Shifeng's answer exasperated Aqua Rose. While testing one's luck was fine, doing so at the cost of Water of Life was simply an extravagance. If God's domain's various powers heard about this, they would definitely go crazy and try to choke Shifeng to death. You never know what we'll get, Shifeng retorted, chuckling. In any case, it's a waste to let the Water of Life simply sit in storage doing nothing. Spending Water of Life to heal these crippled NPCs was indeed prodigal. However, nobody could guarantee that these NPCs would remain mediocre after they recovered to their peak. Moreover, he didn't have Aqua Rose randomly gather injured NPCs either. Instead, he had her select injured NPCs that were at Tier 3 or above. At the same time, these NPCs also needed to have a growth potential of 20 or higher. In God's domain, any NPC capable of reaching Tier 3 would not possess a low growth potential. Meanwhile, the 20-point mark for growth potential was a major turning point for Tier 3 NPCs. In the past, the various superpowers had experimented with using Water of Life on crippled Tier 3 NPCs. The result they obtained was that all crippled Tier 3 NPCs with a growth potential lower than 20 had failed to reach a secret Silver Guard rank even after recovering from their injuries. Of course, this did not mean that all crippled Tier 3 NPCs with a growth potential of 20 or higher would reach the secret Silver Guard standard once they recovered. The chances of success were just much greater. Fortunately, aside from Zero Wing, no other power was currently searching for such NPCs. As a result, Zero Wing managed to locate quite a number of these NPCs. And with the growth potentials of the gathered NPCs, the odds of there being excellent NPC guards among them were quite high. In fact, so long as 2 or 3 fine gold guards emerged among these 100+ NPCs, Zero Wing would have hit the jackpot. After all, NPCs capable of reaching the Dark Gold Guard standard were incredibly rare in God's domain. Although Shifeng had known about quite a few Dark Gold Guards during his previous life, he didn't know where to find them, as the superpowers had kept a tight lid on all information about those NPCs. He had only known about Kite's whereabouts and circumstances because Kite had originated from Starmoon Kingdom, and his owner was a merchant player with loose lips. Following which, Shifeng provided 1 drop of Water of Life to every NPC present, his actions giving Aqua Rose a heartache. Every drop of Water of Life was equivalent to the life of an NPC with high growth potential. The Water of Life could also drastically increase the leveling speed of their guild members. The guild could raid Mythic field bosses without worrying about the price necessary to do so. These 100+ drops of water of life could easily elevate the strength of Zero Wing's main force to a whole new level. Upon receiving the water of life from Shifeng, the despondent NPCs immediately brightened up as if they had just seen the light of hope. Once all the NPCs gathered had received their share of water of life, they took one last look at Shifeng before consuming the water of life without hesitation. A dense life aura immediately filled the room. It was so dense that the cells in Aqua Rose's body felt invigorated, her mind gaining greater clarity. After this phenomenon continued for 3 seconds, a powerful aura swept the entire room as if a dragon had awoken from its slumber. Aqua Rose could not help stumbling a few steps back. How is this possible? Aqua Rose's eyes filled with shock as she gazed at the NPCs, who still looked like a throng of beggars, standing in front of her. At this moment, however, the feeling she got from the NPCs was nothing like the aura of a beggar at all. Instead, they felt like battle-hardened warriors that had fought on innumerable battlefields. Even though they were still wearing battered armor and tattered linen clothes, their tempered auras and overflowing mana deterred ordinary people from approaching them casually. It seems we really hit the jackpot this time. Shifeng also grew a little excited when he sensed the aura of the NPCs before him. Originally, he thought that he would be lucky to get even 2 or 3 fine gold guards out of these 100+ NPCs. However, it would seem that he was sorely mistaken. The strength of the combined aura these 100+ NPCs were currently releasing could already rival that of a 100-man team of Tier 3 knights, despite these NPCs being geared in extremely shabby weapons and equipment. If they were fully equipped with epic weapons and equipment, their combined aura would definitely be much stronger than that of a 100-man team of Tier 3 knights. Following which, Shifeng and Aqua Rose started inspecting the updated statistics of these NPCs to get a better idea of these NPC standards. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Once they completed their inspection, Aqua Rose was stunned. Of the 100+ NPCs gathered, even the weakest one was at the mysterious Iron Guard standard. These mysterious Iron Guards numbered only 47, but every one of them possessed very high growth potential for mysterious Iron Guards. With the help of the Ancient Gods literature fragment, Shifeng had an excellent chance of elevating them to the secret Silver Guard standard. As for the remaining 57 NPCs, 49 of them were secret Silver Guards, 6 were fine Gold Guards, and 2 were dark Gold Guards. This outcome was simply ridiculous. While Aqua Rose stared at the 2 dark Gold Guards, Shifeng's focus was on an elderly man clad in grey robes. Despite this elderly man's growth potential being only at the secret Silver Guard standard, Shifeng's eyes glowed with astonishment as he gazed at him. A Tier 4 Great Wizard. Chapter 2591, Zero Wing's new residence. Shifeng could not believe his eyes as he gazed at the elderly man in grey before him. Tier 4. This was a bona fide powerhouse, an individual that stood at the apex of God's domain. Noticing Shifeng's shock, Aqua Rose's attention drifted to the Tier 4 Great Wizard. At first, she had been surprised, but disappointment quickly followed. She had just noticed the elderly man's growth potential. What a pity, Aqua Rose said, sighing. Tier 4 is amazing, but his secret silver ranked growth potential will hold him back. Normally, bronze and mysterious iron guards hit their limit at Tier 3. While secret silver guards were stronger than bronze and mysterious iron rank, they would hit a wall at Tier 4, with minuscule chances of making it to Tier 5. More of God's domain's players hit Tier 3 every day, and it wouldn't be long before the various superpowers peak experts began to challenge their Tier 4 promotion quests. Once they completed those quests, Tier 4 NPCs' power would become quite limited, especially that of Tier 4 Secret Silver Guards. A Tier 4 Secret Silver Guard's combat power was only on par with a Tier 4 peak expert in full, top-tier equipment. They might be strong, but they weren't invincible. A pity? Shifeng shook his head and laughed, but he didn't bother to say more. We've gotten so lucky this time, guild leader. We now have 2 more dark gold guards, a guardian knight and an oracle. If your 2 guards participate, you could form a well-rounded raid party to take down high-ranked field bosses, Aqua Rose delightedly reported. Shifeng was one of White River City's counts, so he had the authority to recruit 4 personal guards. If he accepted these new dark gold guards, he could use his 4 guard slots to their maximum efficiency. Dark gold guards were incredibly rare. Most, if not all, superpowers didn't even have one. I'll pass on these 2 dark gold guards. You and Snow will each nurture one. Both of you are counts, too, so you should have some extra slots, Shifeng said, shaking his head. I'll take this gray-clad elder. Dark gold guards were extremely useful, especially when players wouldn't have to worry about dying. Forming a standard, 4-man raiding party with only dark gold or better guards would be a dream. However, he almost always operated alone. Rather than take the 2 dark gold guards for himself, Gentle Snow and Aqua Rose could make better use of them. The 2 women frequently led grinding teams and dungeon raids. A dark gold guard would greatly enhance their respective team's strength. But, guild leader, that elder is only a secret silver guard. Shifeng's decision surprised Aqua Rose. Shifeng was Zero Wing's guild leader, role model, and face. Even if he didn't want the 2 dark gold guards, he should, at least, take a fine gold guard. Picking a secret silver guard, even a tier 4 great wizard, would make him a laughingstock. A secret silver guard is quite powerful, Shifeng said, chuckling. He is also a tier 4 great wizard. He could serve as a magistrate in a major city in any kingdom or empire. He is a true powerhouse in God's domain. Aqua Rose only saw secret silver guards as worthless due to the fact that Zero Wing had more than 30 fine gold guards, but even the various superpowers wouldn't have more than 2 or 3 fine gold guards at this stage of the game. Some had even fewer than that. Normally, the various superpowers treated secret silver guards like their own children, not to mention a guard that had already reached tier 4. It should be known that secret silver guards only had a chance of reaching tier 4, their success wasn't guaranteed. Tier 4 wasn't just a major turning point for players, but for NPCs, as well. Reaching tier 4 was an incredible feat for all in God's domain. Not even fine gold guards were guaranteed to reach tier 4. They merely had a higher chance. Based on past players' collected statistics, fine gold guards only had a 30% chance of completing their tier 4 promotion quest. Dark gold guards' chances were roughly around 40%. Of course, even if a personal guard failed their tier 4 promotion quest, they could challenge it again. Players would only have to invest more resources to boost their strength. However, challenging the tier 4 promotion quests was a time-consuming process for both players and NPCs. Personal guards would have to wait a full month before they could challenge the quest after failing it. Hence, it was easy to imagine how much time it would take to nurture a tier 4 NPC. As for recruiting a tier 4 NPC as one's personal guard, that was simply unheard of. Shifeng hadn't heard of a single player recruiting a tier 4 NPC. At best, some had recruited tier 3 NPCs. If he revealed this elderly man's information, the various superpowers would likely die with envy. While the gray-clothed wizard's growth potential was somewhat lacking compared to dark gold guards, Shifeng wasn't concerned. He had plenty of items that could raise an NPC's growth potential, and this old man's was on the high end for secret silver guards. With a little effort, upgrading him to fine gold rank was entirely possible. Following which, Shifeng recruited the elderly man as one of his personal guards. Versailles, Yifeng's personal guard, gender, male age, 76 loyalty, 75 growth potential, 74 level 112 class, tier 4 great wizard. When she saw Versailles' statistics, Aqua Rose was speechless. After recovering, the other tier 3 NPCs had climbed to, on average, level 120. The dark gold ranked guardian knight she had recruited was even level 121, yet Versailles was only 112. Versailles hadn't even reached the level required to challenge the Tier 4 promotion quest. He was also a much lower level than mainstream personal guards. It's almost time. The Lost Town's transfer should be complete by now. Gather the main force members immediately, as well as all of the potential newcomers and core members, who have signed our confidentiality contract. From now on, the Lost Town will be our developmental headquarters, Shifeng said as he glanced at the time. Is that all, guild leader? What about the Lost Town security? Aqua Rose asked worriedly. The Demon Wolf Mountain Range was a far more dangerous place than Cold Spring Forest, so defending a stronghold there would be a much greater challenge. Moreover, the Lost Town wasn't a basic city, only a basic town. Yet, Shifeng only wanted to station the guild's contracted recruits and core members. Even with the guild's main force, the town would only have around 5,000 players. It was far more than what they had stationed in the Lost Town before this, but the town had only occupied a pre-level 100 neutral map. The small number of high-level NPCs and players had been more than enough to deal with the occasional monster tide. However, they wouldn't have a level advantage in the Demon Wolf Mountain Range. Normally, security might have been a problem with so few members, but we have time now, Shifeng consoled his companion as he gestured to Versailles. With him there, we won't have to worry about security. But, he's only level 112 and a secret silver guard, Aqua Rose argued. Relax. He'll be more than enough, Shifeng said, not bothering to explain. Definitively, he continued, just relay the message. Alright, then. I'll go notify them, Aqua Rose despondently agreed, leaving to notify the guild members Shifeng had requested. Since he was so confident, insisting would be inappropriate. Before half an hour had passed, all of Zero Wing's contracted recruits and core members used the guild transfer scroll Shifeng had provided and arrived in the Lost Town, which had transformed into a wintry wonderland. Chapter 2592, Natural Training Ground. As Zero Wing's members teleported to the Lost Town's residence, the residence's plaza quickly became crowded. What is this place? Why do I feel like a foreign energy is trying to invade my body? My senses feel so dull, and I'm suddenly starving. Didn't the higher-ups say they were bringing us to a sacred training and leveling ground? What's going on here? My friends were still jealous that I got chosen to join the guild's special training, and they didn't, but why does this place feel lesser than Stone Forest City? Upon their arrival to the Lost Town, Zero Wing's new recruits and core members, all of whom had high potential, were curious about the situation, falling into heated discussions. The recruits were especially confused. They knew nothing about the Lost Town, and now, they had been thrown into such a harsh environment. They couldn't bring themselves to believe this was a sacred training ground. Just surviving in this town long-term would be a problem. The situation began to worry Aqua Rosen. The town's new location was nothing like what she had imagined. Even Tier 3 players like herself would struggle to survive here, much less the guild's latest trainees, who hadn't yet reached Tier 3. Needless to say, training and fighting the random monster tides would be nearly impossible. Players would be fortunate to exhibit their normal combat standards in such a severe area, much less improve their combat standards. During her previous visit to the Demon Wolf Mountain Range, she had stayed in the neutral map's outer region, where the environment hadn't been particularly harsh, but now that she stood in the inner region, she felt sluggish, and her senses had considerably dulled. The constant hunger assaulting her mind and body was also quite uncomfortable. Most importantly, the mana here felt like an icy hell. Violent, ice-type mana filled the area, and Aqua Rose could sense scant amounts of other elements. Manipulating mana in this zone would be almost impossible. When players couldn't manipulate mana, how were they supposed to improve? Guild leader, you don't intend these Tier 2 members to remain here for their training, do you? Blue Frost anxiously asked Shifeng. Blue Frost recognized the area as the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner region and knew that the lowest leveled monster was level 120. This would be an amazing area to level and train for players of his tier and level, but Zero Wing's new recruits and Tier 2 members would only waste their time here. These members were Zero Wing's future. Sending them to such a place to waste their time would cost the guild. Remain here for their training. Shaking his head, Shifeng said, such a wonderful thing isn't possible. Shifeng's reply confused Blue Frost. He couldn't understand what was so wonderful about this frozen hellscape. Shifeng didn't explain his statement, however. Instead, he met with the Adventurers Association's NPCs to complete the handover procedures. Once complete, the NPCs promptly left the lost town, making the already desolate town even more lonely. At that point, the sound of a system announcement rang in everyone's ears. Lost Town Region System Announcement: the town's new location is subject to a mysterious curse. Wraiths will absorb the excess mana players radiate, transforming into monsters. Please be wary of these monsters' attacks. Shortly after the system announcement ended and before Zero Wing's members could digest the information, translucent, humanoid ghosts started to manifest around some of Zero Wing's members. These humanoid ghosts appeared to be clones of the players they stood by. They even had the same levels as their human counterparts. The moment their forms were complete, these ghosts attacked the players. Not understanding what was happening, everyone was stunned. Fortunately, they were all Zero Wing experts, and although their levels and tiers weren't up to standard, they commanded expert combat standards. Even the weakest player there could reach the trial tower's 5th floor. They had no trouble responding to the ghosts' attacks appropriately. Meanwhile, the players who hadn't been attacked joined the fray, targeting the ghosts near them. After a moment, however, something else surprising occurred. The ghostly clones had the same combat standards as their human counterparts. Moreover, other players' attacks proved utterly ineffective. Your official training begins now. Be careful of the ghosts that will appear beside you. No one, other than the player the ghosts copy, can do anything to them. If these ghosts kill you, not only will you lose a level, but you won't be able to log in for a day. Shifeng warned as he watched Zero Wing's members fight these phantom monsters. The Demon Wolf Mountain Range was no ordinary location. The map's inner region was actually considered a forbidden land. Every forbidden land in God's domain has some mechanic that made survival particularly difficult. The Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner region had this curse. Shifeng neither knew exactly what this curse was, nor did he know who was responsible for it, but he knew that an endless stream of ghosts would appear to attack and harass any player resting within a town or city established in this area, preventing anyone from remaining in the region long-term. Zero Wing's many members gasped when they heard Shifeng's warning. How was this training? This was simply an execution. They had now fought these ghosts, so they knew the spirits had the same combat standards as the players they cloned. Unlike players, however, the ghosts weren't affected by the harsh environment. Hence, the monsters commanded their players' peak combat power. In other words, the ghosts were stronger than the cloned players. To make matters worse, they would lose a full level and be banned from the game for a full day if they died. Just how were they supposed to catch up with mainstream experts in this situation? While many of his guildmates complained to themselves, Blue Frost, who was engaged in a bitter battle with his ghost, realized something, and excitement flashed in his eyes. Players were at a disadvantage against these ghosts, and they couldn't even manipulate the ambient mana due to its violent, biased nature. The only option they had left was to find a way to manipulate and use the mana within them to defeat the phantom clones. Since these ghosts mimicked both the player's behavior and combat standards, players could also predict their opponent's moves in certain situations. With this thought in mind, Blue Frost found his ghost counterpart much easier to fight. He also discovered many of his own flaws, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Unfortunately, these fights wouldn't benefit Tier 2 players as much as it did Tier 3 players like himself. However, Tier 2 players could still use their skills and spells in this harsh environment, where Tier 3 players struggled. As long as Tier 2 players steadily trained their combat standards and skill and spell completion rates, they were more than capable of defeating their ghosts. Not only weren't these ghosts the problem they had all assumed, but they were also the perfect training partners for experts like them. Only, this kind of training was a little too risky. It wasn't long before the rest of Zero Wing's members realized the same, and many stopped complaining, fully immersing themselves in battle. Guild leader, this place is amazing. It is like a natural training ground. Although using it is costly, everyone's training efficiency will be several times greater than normal. The Tier 3 experts who haven't unlocked their mana body's full potential will likely do so after spending a month here, Aqua Rose said, her eyes glowing brightly as she watched the Zero Wing members before her grow steadily stronger. Zero Wing's main force members had already unlocked a sizable fraction of their mana bodies. If they trained here, they'd complete the task in no more than 10 days. Once they did, the guild would have over 100 Tier 3 experts with 100% of their mana bodies under their command. Just thinking about this elated Aqua Rose. Training here was brutal and dangerous, but compared to its benefits, the cost wasn't overly high. Even if players died, they'd only lose a level and some time. Zero Wing's main force members were already much higher levels than the various superpowers peak experts, so the loss wouldn't be a problem. Moreover, the Lost Town now occupied a level 120 neutral map. Grinding for levels would be easy here, and trading levels for progress in unlocking their mana bodies was certainly a worthwhile exchange for Zero Wing. While Zero Wing's members worked hard to improve, Shifeng made his way to the Extraordinary Tower. He didn't pay everyone's battles much mind. The mysterious curse was only an additional benefit for relocating the Lost Town to the Demon Wolf Mountain range. The Extraordinary Tower was still the town's most valuable aspect. The Extraordinary Tower had always been the best location for players to grasp the realm of truth's principles. Training in this tower could shuttle players from the truth realm all the way to the transcendental realm. However, Shifeng had only been able to unlock the tower's second floor, which offered guidance for reaching the Ascension realm, due to a lack of magic crystals. As a result, he hadn't gained any guidance or clues about progressing to the next realm. Now, however, Zero Wing's magic crystal income had skyrocketed due to Stone Forest City's popularity and the Dark World's teleportation gate. After the past few days, the two sources had provided more than 300,000 magic crystals, utterly surpassing Shifeng's expectations. And this now allowed Shifeng to unlock the Extraordinary Tower's third floor. Once he reached the tower, Shifeng called up the tower's interface and unlocked the third floor. As he did, he heard the sound of a system notification. System, the Extraordinary Tower's first 2 floors have already been unlocked. Do you wish to pay 1 million magic crystals to unlock the third floor? Unlock it. Chapter 2593, Extraordinary Tower's third floor unlocked. The instant Shifeng chose to unlock the Extraordinary Tower's third floor, 1 million magic crystals disintegrated inside his bag, transforming into a stream of mana that flowed into the tower itself. As the torrent of mana flowed into the Extraordinary Tower, the carved divine runes on the inner walls lit up and repaired themselves. While the divine runes became more complete, the tower's exterior changed significantly. With the Extraordinary Tower in the center, the violent mana that filled the Lost Town began to obey. The mana around the tower became denser, and the tower itself released an old, sacred aura that spread throughout the town, instilling anyone it touched with serenity. What an amazing aura! My hungers even disappeared. That's not all. My mind feels much clearer, and my stamina and concentration have begun to recover, as well. I feel like I can fight these ghosts for an entire day without rest. As the sacred aura filled the town, Zero Wing's fighting members rejoiced. They had been at an absolute disadvantage against their ghost counterparts, and they had known death was only a matter of time. The foreign energy was corroding their bodies too quickly. However, the situation had changed. Although their surroundings still lacked any elemental mana other than ice, this sacred aura had cleansed the area of foreign energy. As a result, their minds had cleared during their fight, which would prolong their survival. Meanwhile, every ghost had spawned with a mana life buff, which indicated their remaining lifespan and only had a 6-hour duration. If they could last against these phantoms for more than 6 hours, the ghosts would automatically disappear, even if they couldn't defeat them. In addition, Shifeng had informed them that these ghosts only appeared for each player once a day. If they held on for the full 6 hours, they could spend the rest of their day resting easy in the Lost Town. Of course, players who wanted to dedicate themselves to growing stronger, especially those with high combat standards, wouldn't be satisfied with 6 hours of training. As a result, these players cherished their 6-hour combat session even more than the rest. Moreover, ghosts wouldn't appear for everyone. At the end of the day, these ghosts' appearances were the result of a curse. The stronger a player was, the less effective the curse would be. Ghosts might not even appear for the stronger players and would almost never appear for players who had already unlocked their mana body's full potential. While everyone was surprised and elated about the new changes to the Lost Town, the Extraordinary Tower's sacred aura had finally filled the town. At the same time, a translucent barrier formed around the Lost Town, isolating it completely. This barrier also calmed the violent, ice-type mana in the town, creating a stable mana environment. The mana wasn't very dense, but it was enough to clear the players' minds of unhelpful thoughts. What did the guild leader do? Aqua Rose was shocked when she sensed the changes. She had felt this strange sensation before. To be precise, she had experimented with it during her travels within the Starlight Fortress's Legacy Gate. The only difference was the town's much lower mana density, which resulted in a much smaller boost to her mental capacity. Overall, the Lost Town's training efficiency was barely 1/3 of the Legacy Gate's. Even so, that was astounding. The Lost Town could accommodate far more players than the Legacy Gate, and while it wouldn't be quite as helpful, it was an ideal training ground for Tier 3 players as they tried to unlock their mana bodies. Moreover, the magic barrier substantially increased the town's defenses. With the barrier in place, defeating the monster tides would be far easier. While Aqua Rose and Zero Wing's other members fortunate enough to enter the Legacy Gate were shocked over the Lost Town's transformation, something else within the Extraordinary Tower had shocked Shifeng. This is the result of unlocking the Extraordinary Tower's 3rd floor. He was at a loss as he sensed the ancient aura filling the hall. Normally, only in ancient fortresses could contain all 7 mana elements, yet the Extraordinary Tower brimmed with all of them. Moreover, the mana here was even denser than in the Starlight Fortress. If Tier 3 players trained here, breaking past the 100% threshold would no longer be just a dream, not to mention fully unlocking their mana bodies. He had been worried about crossing that threshold himself, but the tower's new environment had just increased his chances by 10%. If his chances had only increased by 10%, others would have an even greater boost. If players who hadn't yet unlocked their mana body's full potential trained in the Extraordinary Tower, they could definitely accomplish the task in a short time. In fact, their training efficiency here might be twice as high as it was against the humanoid ghosts. Fighting in an area with all 7 mana elements would yield completely different results than fighting in an area with almost none of them. Players would have a much easier time recognizing and controlling the flow of mana in the former. Unfortunately, while this environment was idyllic, there was a limit to the number of players who could take advantage of it. This mana was contained in the Extraordinary Tower's training grounds. The first floor could only accommodate 100 people at a time, while 50 could fit on the second floor, and only 10 would fit on the third. In total, only 160 people could use the Extraordinary Tower at the same time. That was only under ideal circumstances. In reality, far fewer players could train in the Extraordinary Tower at a time. If players wanted to use the second or third floors, they'd have to clear the previous floors first. Shifeng didn't give the matter much thought before he instructed Zero Wing's main force members to train in the tower during their free time and to ignore level grinding and raiding monster dens. Unlocking their mana bodies was far more important than raiding monster dens and level grinding. Furthermore, they had unlocked a considerable percentage of their mana bodies after consuming the exotic legacy potions they had obtained from Poison City. Normally, unlocking their mana bodies would require, at most, 2 full weeks, but with the tower's 3rd floor unlocked, they could accomplish the feat in even less time. Once all of Zero Wing's main force members unlocked their mana body's full potential, the team's grinding efficiency would improve. Securing the demon wolf den that housed the medium teleportation point would also become easier. With his guildmates desperately training, Shifeng made his way to the tower's 2nd floor to begin his ascent. He had reached his limit during his last visit to the extraordinary tower's 2nd floor, unable to improve further regardless of how hard he had tried. Even after creating Sword's transmigration, he hadn't been able to reach the top of the 2nd floor's staircase and had been thrown after reaching the 30th step. Now, however, he had fully unlocked his mana body and gained a newfound understanding of mana. He had even learned a mana technique, and he was ready to challenge the 2nd floor again to push himself through that final barrier. Neither his Tier 4 promotion quest nor the Divine Dragon's trial would be easy to complete. If he failed, he would suffer unimaginable consequences. Fortunately, both trials focused on testing players' individual strength. Advancing through the realms of truth would undoubtedly provide immense help in both upcoming trials. This was why he had decided to activate the Extraordinary Tower's 3rd floor now. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU controlling his emotions, Shifeng climbed the first step on the 2nd floor's staircase. 2 silver-armored swordsmen then appeared, charging at him with the intent to kill. As Shifeng made his way to the Extraordinary Tower's 3rd floor, a group of level 110 experts arrived before Stone Forest City's gates, causing a commotion at the city's main entrance. "So, this is Zero Wing's Stone Forest City," an elegant, middle-aged man amidst the group commented as he gazed at the magnificent city before him. With a surprised tone, he continued, "It is truly extraordinary. With such dense mana and natural terrain advantage, wonder should have grown much stronger here. Don't forget our orders, Elder Hermit. We are not here to sightsee," a bald, middle-aged man in black robes scolded, rolling his eyes. "No matter how much stronger she's grown, wonder must return with us. The time for her willful rebellion has come to an end." "I know. Isn't that why I tagged along in the first place?" Hermit replied. Instead of getting upset at the bald man's comment, he breathed a deep sigh as he led his team into Stone Forest City. Chapter 2592, Natural Training Ground. As Zero Wing's members teleported to the Lost Town's residence, the residence's plaza quickly became crowded. "What is this place? Why do I feel like a foreign energy is trying to invade my body? My senses feel so dull, and I'm suddenly starving. Didn't the higher-ups say they were bringing us to a sacred training and leveling ground? What's going on here? My friends were still jealous that I got chosen to join the guild's special training, and they didn't, but why does this place feel lesser than Stone Forest City?" Upon their arrival to the Lost Town, Zero Wing's new recruits and core members, all of whom had high potential, were curious about the situation, falling into heated discussions. The recruits were especially confused. They knew nothing about the Lost Town, and now, they had been thrown into such a harsh environment. They couldn't bring themselves to believe this was a sacred training ground. Just surviving in this town long-term would be a problem. The situation began to worry Aqua Rosen. The town's new location was nothing like what she had imagined. Even Tier 3 players like herself would struggle to survive here, much less the guild's latest trainees, who hadn't yet reached Tier 3. Needless to say, training and fighting the random monster tides would be nearly impossible. Players would be fortunate to exhibit their normal combat standards in such a severe area, much less improve their combat standards. During her previous visit to the Demon Wolf Mountain Range, she had stayed in the neutral map's outer region, where the environment hadn't been particularly harsh, but now that she stood in the inner region, she felt sluggish, and her senses had considerably dulled. The constant hunger assaulting her mind and body was also quite uncomfortable. Most importantly, the mana here felt like an icy hell. Violent, ice-type mana filled the area, and Aqua Rose could sense scant amounts of other elements. Manipulating mana in this zone would be almost impossible. When players couldn't manipulate mana, how were they supposed to improve? Guild leader, you don't intend these Tier 2 members to remain here for their training, do you? Blue Frost anxiously asked Shifeng. Blue Frost recognized the area as the Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner region and knew that the lowest leveled monster was level 120. This would be an amazing area to level and train for players of his tier and level, but Zero Wing's new recruits and Tier 2 members would only waste their time here. These members were Zero Wing's future. Sending them to such a place to waste their time would cost the guild. Remain here for their training. Shaking his head, Shifeng said, such a wonderful thing isn't possible. Shifeng's reply confused Blue Frost. He couldn't understand what was so wonderful about this frozen hellscape. Shifeng didn't explain his statement, however. Instead, he met with the Adventurers Association's NPCs to complete the handover procedures. Once complete, the NPCs promptly left the lost town, making the already desolate town even more lonely. At that point, the sound of a system announcement rang in everyone's ears. Lost Town Region System Announcement: the town's new location is subject to a mysterious curse. Wraiths will absorb the excess mana players radiate, transforming into monsters. Please be wary of these monsters' attacks. Shortly after the system announcement ended and before Zero Wing's members could digest the information, translucent, humanoid ghosts started to manifest around some of Zero Wing's members. These humanoid ghosts appeared to be clones of the players they stood by. They even had the same levels as their human counterparts. The moment their forms were complete, these ghosts attacked the players. Not understanding what was happening, everyone was stunned. Fortunately, they were all Zero Wing experts, and although their levels and tiers weren't up to standard, they commanded expert combat standards. Even the weakest player there could reach the trial tower's 5th floor. They had no trouble responding to the ghosts' attacks appropriately. Meanwhile, the players who hadn't been attacked joined the fray, targeting the ghosts near them. After a moment, however, something else surprising occurred. The ghostly clones had the same combat standards as their human counterparts. Moreover, other players' attacks proved utterly ineffective. Your official training begins now. Be careful of the ghosts that will appear beside you. No one, other than the player the ghosts copy, can do anything to them. If these ghosts kill you, not only will you lose a level, but you won't be able to log in for a day. Shifeng warned as he watched Zero Wing's members fight these phantom monsters. The Demon Wolf Mountain Range was no ordinary location. The map's inner region was actually considered a forbidden land. Every forbidden land in God's domain has some mechanic that made survival particularly difficult. The Demon Wolf Mountain Range's inner region had this curse. Shifeng neither knew exactly what this curse was, nor did he know who was responsible for it, but he knew that an endless stream of ghosts would appear to attack and harass any player resting within a town or city established in this area, preventing anyone from remaining in the region long-term. Zero Wing's many members gasped when they heard Shifeng's warning. How was this training? This was simply an execution. They had now fought these ghosts, so they knew the spirits had the same combat standards as the players they cloned. Unlike players, however, the ghosts weren't affected by the harsh environment. Hence, the monsters commanded their players' peak combat power. In other words, the ghosts were stronger than the cloned players. To make matters worse, they would lose a full level and be banned from the game for a full day if they died. Just how were they supposed to catch up with mainstream experts in this situation? While many of his guildmates complained to themselves, Blue Frost, who was engaged in a bitter battle with his ghost, realized something, and excitement flashed in his eyes. Players were at a disadvantage against these ghosts, and they couldn't even manipulate the ambient mana due to its violent, biased nature. The only option they had left was to find a way to manipulate and use the mana within them to defeat the phantom clones. Since these ghosts mimicked both the player's behavior and combat standards, players could also predict their opponent's moves in certain situations. With this thought in mind, Blue Frost found his ghost counterpart much easier to fight. He also discovered many of his own flaws, killing two birds with one stone. Unfortunately, these fights wouldn't benefit Tier 2 players as much as it did Tier 3 players like himself. However, Tier 2 players could still use their skills and spells in this harsh environment, where Tier 3 players struggled. As long as Tier 2 players steadily trained their combat standards and skill and spell completion rates, they were more than capable of defeating their ghosts. Not only weren't these ghosts the problem they had all assumed, but they were also the perfect training partners for experts like them. Only, this kind of training was a little too risky. It wasn't long before the rest of Zero Wing's members realized the same, and many stopped complaining, fully immersing themselves in battle. Guild leader, this place is amazing. It is like a natural training ground. Although using it is costly, everyone's training efficiency will be several times greater than normal. The Tier 3 experts who haven't unlocked their mana body's full potential will likely do so after spending a month here, Aqua Rose said, her eyes glowing brightly as she watched the Zero Wing members before her grow steadily stronger. Zero Wing's main force members had already unlocked a sizable fraction of their mana bodies. If they trained here, they'd complete the task in no more than 10 days. Once they did, the guild would have over 100 Tier 3 experts with 100% of their mana bodies under their command. Just thinking about this elated Aqua Rose. Training here was brutal and dangerous, but compared to its benefits, the cost wasn't overly high. Even if players died, they'd only lose a level and some time. Zero Wing's main force members were already much higher levels than the various superpowers peak experts, so the loss wouldn't be a problem. Moreover, the Lost Town now occupied a level 120 neutral map. Grinding for levels would be easy here, and trading levels for progress in unlocking their mana bodies was certainly a worthwhile exchange for Zero Wing. While Zero Wing's members worked hard to improve, Shifeng made his way to the Extraordinary Tower. He didn't pay everyone's battles much mind. The mysterious curse was only an additional benefit for relocating the Lost Town to the Demon Wolf Mountain range. The Extraordinary Tower was still the town's most valuable aspect. The Extraordinary Tower had always been the best location for players to grasp the realm of truth's principles. Training in this tower could shuttle players from the truth realm all the way to the transcendental realm. However, Shifeng had only been able to unlock the tower's second floor, which offered guidance for reaching the Ascension realm, due to a lack of magic crystals. As a result, he hadn't gained any guidance or clues about progressing to the next realm. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU now, however, Zero Wing's magic crystal income had skyrocketed due to Stone Forest City's popularity and the Dark World's teleportation gate. After the past few days, the two sources had provided more than 300,000 magic crystals, utterly surpassing Shifeng's expectations. And this now allowed Shifeng to unlock the Extraordinary Tower's third floor. Once he reached the tower, Shifeng called up the tower's interface and unlocked the third floor. As he did, he heard the sound of a system notification. System, the Extraordinary Tower's first 2 floors have already been unlocked. Do you wish to pay 1 million magic crystals to unlock the third floor? Unlock it. Chapter 2593, Extraordinary Tower's third floor unlocked. The instant Shifeng chose to unlock the Extraordinary Tower's third floor, 1 million magic crystals disintegrated inside his bag, transforming into a stream of mana that flowed into the tower itself. As the torrent of mana flowed into the Extraordinary Tower, the carved divine runes on the inner walls lit up and repaired themselves. While the divine runes became more complete, the tower's exterior changed significantly. With the Extraordinary Tower in the center, the violent mana that filled the Lost Town began to obey. The mana around the tower became denser, and the tower itself released an old, sacred aura that spread throughout the town, instilling anyone it touched with serenity. What an amazing aura! My hungers even disappeared. That's not all. My mind feels much clearer, and my stamina and concentration have begun to recover, as well. I feel like I can fight these ghosts for an entire day without rest. As the sacred aura filled the town, Zero Wing's fighting members rejoiced. They had been at an absolute disadvantage against their ghost counterparts, and they had known death was only a matter of time. The foreign energy was corroding their bodies too quickly. However, the situation had changed. Although their surroundings still lacked any elemental mana other than ice, this sacred aura had cleansed the area of foreign energy. As a result, their minds had cleared during their fight, which would prolong their survival. Meanwhile, every ghost had spawned with a mana life buff, which indicated their remaining lifespan and only had a 6-hour duration. If they could last against these phantoms for more than 6 hours, the ghosts would automatically disappear, even if they couldn't defeat them. In addition, Shifeng had informed them that these ghosts only appeared for each player once a day. If they held on for the full 6 hours, they could spend the rest of their day resting easy in the lost town. Of course, players who wanted to dedicate themselves to growing stronger, especially those with high combat standards, wouldn't be satisfied with 6 hours of training. As a result, these players cherished their 6-hour combat session even more than the rest. Moreover, ghosts wouldn't appear for everyone. At the end of the day, these ghosts' appearances were the result of a curse. The stronger a player was, the less effective the curse would be. Ghosts might not even appear for the stronger players and would almost never appear for players who had already unlocked their mana body's full potential. While everyone was surprised and elated about the new changes to the lost town, the Extraordinary Tower's sacred aura had finally filled the town. At the same time, a translucent barrier formed around the lost town, isolating it completely. This barrier also calmed the violent, ice-type mana in the town, creating a stable mana environment. The mana wasn't very dense, but it was enough to clear the players' minds of unhelpful thoughts. What did the guild leader do? Aqua Rose was shocked when she sensed the changes. She had felt this strange sensation before. To be precise, she had experimented with it during her travels within the Starlight Fortress's Legacy Gate. The only difference was the town's much lower mana density, which resulted in a much smaller boost to her mental capacity. Overall, the Lost Town's training efficiency was barely 1/3 of the Legacy Gate's. Even so, that was astounding. The Lost Town could accommodate far more players than the Legacy Gate, and while it wouldn't be quite as helpful, it was an ideal training ground for Tier 3 players as they tried to unlock their mana bodies. Moreover, the magic barrier substantially increased the town's defenses. With the barrier in place, defeating the monster tides would be far easier. While Aqua Rose and Zero Wing's other members fortunate enough to enter the Legacy Gate were shocked over the Lost Town's transformation, something else within the Extraordinary Tower had shocked Shifeng. This is the result of unlocking the Extraordinary Tower's 3rd floor. He was at a loss as he sensed the ancient aura filling the hall. Normally, only in ancient fortresses could contain all 7 mana elements, yet the Extraordinary Tower brimmed with all of them. Moreover, the mana here was even denser than in the Starlight Fortress. If Tier 3 players trained here, breaking past the 100% threshold would no longer be just a dream, not to mention fully unlocking their mana bodies. He had been worried about crossing that threshold himself, but the tower's new environment had just increased his chances by 10%. If his chances had only increased by 10%, others would have an even greater boost. If players who hadn't yet unlocked their mana body's full potential trained in the Extraordinary Tower, they could definitely accomplish the task in a short time. In fact, their training efficiency here might be twice as high as it was against the humanoid ghosts. Fighting in an area with all 7 mana elements would yield completely different results than fighting in an area with almost none of them. Players would have a much easier time recognizing and controlling the flow of mana in the former. Unfortunately, while this environment was idyllic, there was a limit to the number of players who could take advantage of it. This mana was contained in the Extraordinary Tower's training grounds. The first floor could only accommodate 100 people at a time, while 50 could fit on the second floor, and only 10 would fit on the third. In total, only 160 people could use the Extraordinary Tower at the same time. That was only under ideal circumstances. In reality, far fewer players could train in the Extraordinary Tower at a time. If players wanted to use the second or third floors, they'd have to clear the previous floors first. Shifeng didn't give the matter much thought before he instructed Zero Wing's main force members to train in the tower during their free time and to ignore level grinding and raiding monster dens. Unlocking their mana bodies was far more important than raiding monster dens and level grinding. Furthermore, they had unlocked a considerable percentage of their mana bodies after consuming the exotic legacy potions they had obtained from Poison City. Normally, unlocking their mana bodies would require, at most, 2 full weeks, but with the tower's third floor unlocked, they could accomplish the feat in even less time. Once all of Zero Wing's main force members unlocked their mana body's full potential, the team's grinding efficiency would improve. Securing the Demon Wolf Den that housed the medium teleportation point would also become easier. With his guildmates desperately training, Shifeng made his way to the tower's second floor to begin his ascent. He had reached his limit during his last visit to the Extraordinary Tower's second floor, unable to improve further regardless of how hard he had tried. Even after creating Sword's transmigration, he hadn't been able to reach the top of the second floor's staircase and had been thrown after reaching the 30th step. Now, however, he had fully unlocked his mana body and gained a newfound understanding of mana. He had even learned a mana technique, and he was ready to challenge the second floor again to push himself through that final barrier. Neither his Tier 4 promotion quest nor the Divine Dragon's trial would be easy to complete. If he failed, he would suffer unimaginable consequences. Fortunately, both trials focused on testing players' individual strength. Advancing through the realms of truth would undoubtedly provide immense help in both upcoming trials. This was why he had decided to activate the Extraordinary Tower's third floor now. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU controlling his emotions, Shifeng climbed the first step on the second floor's staircase. 2 silver-armored swordsmen then appeared, charging at him with the intent to kill. As Shifeng made his way to the Extraordinary Tower's third floor, a group of level 110 experts arrived before Stone Forest City's gates, causing a commotion at the city's main entrance. "So, this is Zero Wing's Stone Forest City," an elegant, middle-aged man amidst the group commented as he gazed at the magnificent city before him. With a surprised tone, he continued, "It is truly extraordinary. With such dense mana and natural terrain advantage, wonder should have grown much stronger here. Don't forget our orders, Elder Hermit. We are not here to sightsee," a bald, middle-aged man in black robes scolded, rolling his eyes. "No matter how much stronger she's grown, wonder must return with us. The time for her willful rebellion has come to an end." "I know. Isn't that why I tagged along in the first place?" Hermit replied. Instead of getting upset at the bald man's comment, he breathed a deep sigh as he led his team into Stone Forest City. Chapter 2594, Half-Step Grandmaster. Stone Forest City, Candlelight Trading Firm. Following the NPC, Hermit and the bald man arrived at one of the basic meditation rooms on the trading firm's top floor. They were greeted by the sight of a woman in luxurious, dark blue robes and enveloped in a faint layer of mana. The woman was steadfastly focused on brewing a potion, her every action smooth and dexterous. A short moment later, the woman lifted her hand, holding a potion that radiated dense mana. She can brew the master-ranked advanced magic resistance potion so easily. She must not be far from becoming a Grandmaster alchemist. The scene had astonished Hermit and his companion. Master-ranked magic resistance potions were quite rare and costly on the market. They could, after all, enable Tier 3 players to roam level 100+ maps with harsh environments. However, Master-ranked advanced magic resistance potions were even stronger. Not only could they help Tier 2 players survive in the severe environments in level 100 plus maps, but the potion's effects would also last 24 full hours. Level 100 plus maps had abundant resources, particularly those level 110 and above, but their environments were severe and dangerous. Only Tier 3 players could survive in these maps without aid. Unfortunately, the various powers had too few Tier 3 experts at this stage of the game, and they had to rely on their Tier 2 members to gather resources for their development. Hence, the demand for Master-ranked advanced magic resistance potions was incredibly high. However, crafting Master-ranked advanced magic resistance potions wasn't easy. Even a Master Alchemist wouldn't have more than a 30% success rate, and the potions took a long time to brew. Including the current rarity of Master Alchemists, there wasn't enough supply of these potions to meet demand. Silent Wonder, on the other hand, could effortlessly brew these potions. Moreover, she had completed her last potion with astounding speed. She was efficient enough to take on the work of 3 or 4 Master Alchemists. With those skills, she was likely on the brink of becoming a Grandmaster Alchemist. Rather than Silent Wonder's alchemy standards, Hermit and the Bald Man were far more surprised to see that she had reached level 111. She was actually one level higher than they were. It seems the rumors calling Stone Forest City a sacred leveling ground were true, after all, Hermit muttered, staring at the level displayed above Silent Wonder's head in shock. Silent Wonder wasn't a pure combat player. Although players could gain EXP through their subclasses, they didn't earn nearly as much as combat players, who relentlessly grinded monsters in the fields. Despite that, Silent Wonder had still surpassed both of them. This fact alone made it clear how extraordinary a Guild Zero Wing was. Fifth Uncle, Elder Hermit, isn't there still some time before the family competition begins? What's with the sudden visit? Silent Wonder asked, curious to see the two people enter the room. The Azure Chamber of Commerce held a competition between its main shareholder families once a year on the same date. The next competition would begin in 6 days. Even if her family intended to escort her to the Western continent, she had expected they'd only show up the day before. She had no clue why they'd show up so early without prior notice. Moreover, Hermit, the man responsible for Demon Stone Town's safety, had come to see her. These two didn't seem like they were simply here to escort her. There is indeed still some time before the competition, but that's not the only reason we've come, the middle-aged man informed her. I'm sure you are aware that the Zeus Corporation's support is a large part of the reason Azure enjoys its current success. Has something happened with the Zeus Corporation? Silent Wonder asked. The Zeus Corporation was one of the top 10 corporations in the world. The corporation's support was also a large part of the reason that the Azure Chamber of Commerce had grown over the years and achieved its current status in God's domain. Moreover, the Zeus Corporation had a considerable portion of the Super Guild, Violet Sword's shares. Violet Sword was relatively ancient, with over a century of history. It was one of the oldest super guilds to rise in the virtual gaming world. Its long history was only second to the 5 great super guilds, and the guild's relationship with the Zeus Corporation was why Azure had developed so smoothly on the Western continent. That's right. Violet Sword urgently needs lifestyle masters, so Zeus has decided that Azure will offer support. Since you are the greatest talent among our family's younger generation, you cannot avoid developing in Violet Sword. We have come to escort you to the guild's headquarters, the bald, middle-aged man explained, nodding. Develop in Violet Sword? But, Silent Wonder was stunned. I know you wish to remain in Zero Wing, seeing as it has helped you so much. Helplessly, the bald man continued, however, you know how much the Zeus Corporation has helped Azure. Zeus's help is the very reason that Azure maintains its hold on a Grade 1 or vein. You are one of the lifestyle masters the corporation handpicked. If you don't go, not only will our family lose Zeus's support, but we might also lose our hold on that vein, which Azure relies on to survive. The Zeus Corporation was rich and powerful. It also commanded considerable strength and influence in the West. One word from the corporation is all it would take to throw the Azure Chamber of Commerce to the wolves. Can you give me some time to think, fifth uncle? Silent Wonder hesitantly requested. We might have allowed you to do as you wish until now, but this concerns the family's future. We cannot allow you to continue this willful behavior anymore. The bald man snapped. Once the family competition has ended, you will travel to Violet Sword to continue your development. Take this time to prepare. You don't need to worry about your situation with Zero Wing. We will help you settle it. With that, the bald man and hermit turned and left the room, leaving Silent Wonder stupefied. After leaving the Candlelight trading firm, the two men headed straight for Zero Wing's residence. Don't you think you're being a little too impatient, Wuxiang? We should have given Wonder some time to accept the situation, Hermit commented, sending a sidelong glance at his companion. Accept it? Do you assume I don't want to? The bald man, Long Wuxiang, solemnly replied, offering a bitter smile. The Zeus Corporation has given us an ultimatum. In fact, the corporation has already delivered the other family's younger members to train with Violet Sword as a means to harass the Long family. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Even so, I'm afraid Wonder will not go obediently, Hermit said. With as stubborn as she is, persuading her will be difficult. That's why we're going to meet with Zero Wing. As long as Zero Wing willingly lets her go, she'll be easier to convince, Long Wuxiang said. What if Zero Wing refuses? You must realize that the guild is not to be trifled with, Hermit worriedly countered. Isn't that why you're here? Long Wuxiang replied, rolling his eyes. He shifted his gaze toward the nearby guild residence, sneering as he continued, Zero Wing doesn't have a choice. If Zero Wing refuses to let Wonder go, it will suffer the Zeus Corporation's wrath. Chapter 2595, True Ascension Realm Lost Town, Extraordinary Tower's second floor. As Shifeng ascended the staircase to the third floor, more and stronger swordsmen continued to appear. On the first step, he had only faced 2 silver swordsmen. When he reached the 89th step, his opponents were 4 golden swordsmen. Not only had all of these golden swordsmen commanded combat standards nearly on par with the refinement realm, but all 4 had reached the truth realm, as well. Combining both aspects, their combat power was far stronger than ordinary refinement realm experts. Moreover, the 4 golden swordsmen's coordination was as seamless as if they shared one mind. There were no gaps in their offense or defense, and they all possessed incredible basic attributes. Even Shifeng struggled to cope with the golden swordsman's assault. If he hadn't had swords transmigration to defend himself, these golden swordsmen would have long since thrown him back down the staircase. I can easily handle these swordsmen one-on-one, but avoiding their coordinated attacks with the physique of a Tier 1 player is impossible. It seems my only option is to force my way through. After 3 minutes of fighting these 4 golden swordsmen, Shifeng realized that continuing this battle was a waste of time. He couldn't find any weaknesses to take advantage of. The only method he could think of to reach the next step was to force his way past these swordsmen. Following which, Shifeng stepped forward and sucked in a deep breath. He then raised the abyssal blade above his head, gathering mana around the weapon. A phantom of a gigantic greatsword immediately appeared above him. Although the extraordinary tower suppressed his physique to that of Tier 1, it did nothing to hamper his mana body. He could easily command his own mana in combat. In retaliation, the 4 golden swordsmen launched a joint attack, aiming for 16 of Shifeng's weak points. Before they had a chance to strike, Shifeng swung down the abyssal blade. Lightshadow. Boom! After the phantom greatsword's descent, all 4 golden swordsmen stumbled back several steps, falling out of formation. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Shifeng charged at the nearest opponent. His target reacted quickly. Although the golden swordsman hadn't regained its posture, it used a horizontal slash in an attempt to stop Shifeng's charge. However, Shifeng didn't give the Golden Swordsman a chance to defend itself as his sacred sword transformed into a streak of light, deflecting the horizontal slash. He then thrust the abyssal blade at the Golden Swordsman's chest. Ping! Sparks flew as the fragmented legendary weapon collided with the Golden Swordsman's armor, shoving it back a few more steps before it fell. Finally, Shifeng tore a hole in the four Golden Swordsmen's formation. Now, with his target on the ground, Shifeng used void steps to confuse the three remaining Golden Swordsmen and escape their encirclement. He then leaped onto the 90th step. The moment Shifeng landed on the 90th step, a swordsman in black robes appeared before him. This black swordsman then thrust his weapon at Shifeng. The thrust was surprisingly powerful, and the instant the black swordsman's blade shot forward, it transformed into numerous particles of light that shot toward Shifeng. It was impossible to tell which attack was real and which was fake. An advanced combat technique? Shifeng's expression darkened when he recognized the move as a combat technique. This black swordsman's basic attributes and combat standards were even higher than the golden swordsman Shifeng had just faced. In fact, the black swordsman was on the cusp of reaching the flowing water realm. Combined with its advanced combat technique, Shifeng was no match for this opponent with just a Tier 1 physique. Of course, this disadvantage wasn't enough to make Shifeng give up. Instead, he brandished Killing Ray in response. Swords Transmigration. The instant the two weapons met, a deafening boom echoed throughout the second floor. The impact was so powerful that Shifeng stumbled back down to the 89th step. He hadn't had time to readjust his posture, and the four golden swordsmen he had left behind subsequently threw him back down to the base of the second floor staircase. The 90th step's black swordsman is amazing. I saw no excess movements, and it perfectly integrated an advanced combat technique. Not even domain realm experts could find any opening to take advantage of and would be forced to face its attacks head-on. Shifeng wasn't disappointed about returning to square one. Actually, he seemed rather excited. The black swordsman had highlighted some of his own flaws. He had reached the realm of truth's ascension realm, and his every action resembled a combat technique, but they weren't. His movements lacked the power of combat techniques, they only possessed the deception of true combat techniques. To put it simply, he hadn't made much progress in the ascension realm, and his foundations were unsteady. He had only grasped the vague concept of the realm, lacking its crucial concepts. The black swordsman, on the other hand, stood firmly in the ascension realm. Because of this, Shifeng couldn't yet ascend to the extraordinary tower's third floor, despite having reached the ascension realm. If he could gain even a portion of the black swordsman's mastery over the ascension realm and perfectly integrate basic combat techniques with his every action, his combat power would definitely rise by a large margin. Meanwhile, during the time Shifeng was reflecting on his own flaws, a few other Zero Wing members were sent flying down the second floor's staircase as well. I did it. I finally did it. Shadow Sword shouted ecstatically as he looked at the dense mana his body radiated. Turtledove, Alluring Summer, and the others who had fallen down the stairs similarly radiated dense mana. They had obviously unlocked their mana body's full potential. Moreover, Blue Frost, Flying Shadow, Stubborn Bone, and a few other Zero Wing members, who had only begun to unlock their mana bodies, revealed excited expressions. They had made significant progress during their climb on the Extraordinary Tower's second-floor staircase. Training in the Extraordinary Tower is really this effective? Shifeng looked at the players around him, astonished. While the Extraordinary Tower's mana provided quite a bit of help to players developing their mana control, Shifeng didn't think it'd be such an effective tool in helping them unlock their mana bodies. Learning the rules and how to manipulate mana wasn't an easy task, not to mention adapting those methods to one's mana body. Shifeng estimated that although Shadow Sword and the rest had been close to unlocking all of their mana body's potential, they should have still needed 3 to 5 days to reach 100%. And yet, they had succeeded in less than half a day. If every one of Zero Wing's main force members could make this much progress, every one of them would fully unlock their mana bodies in less than 10 days, becoming true powerhouses in God's domain. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Just as Shifeng turned his attention back to the second floor's staircase, however, he received a call from Melancholic Smile. Guild leader, Azure's representatives have come to our residence. They wish to speak with you about taking Wonder to develop in the West's Violet Sword. They're hoping we won't hinder her future and just let her go. They visited Wonder before coming here, too, but it seems Wonder's reaction wasn't positive, Melancholic Smile reported. Violet Sword, huh? Shifeng could not contain his smile. Azure is certainly crafty. Will you meet with them? Melancholic Smile asked. That won't be necessary. Have Hell Rush send them away. Also, have him convey a message. I'll personally take Wonder to visit Violet Sword after the family competition to have a proper conversation with the Super Guild's people, so they don't need to bother. Shifeng calmly stated. Chapter 2596, Mighty Zero Wing. Times have changed. Stone Forest City, Zero Wing's residence. Long Wuxiang and Hermit sat by the French window, clearly unhappy, in Zero Wing's large, luxurious reception room. So you're saying that guild leader Black Flame has no intention of meeting us, Commander Rush? Long Wuxiang demanded, glaring at Hell Rush, who had just notified them of Shifeng's reply. That's right. He knows what you wish to discuss and requested that I relay a message. Once the family competition is over, he will personally take Silent Wonder to visit Violet Sword, so you don't have to bother, Hell Rush coolly informed the two men, nodding. The message stunned both of them, particularly Long Wuxiang. Long Wuxiang had considered many possible outcomes before visiting Zero Wing's residence, and had prepared a variety of arguments to persuade Shifeng to let Silent Wonder go. However, he never considered that Shifeng would simply refuse to meet with them, turning them away. However, what truly surprised the bald man was the fact that Hell Rush had followed Shifeng's instructions, conveying the message personally. The alliance between Netherworld Empire and Zero Wing was no longer a secret among the various superpowers, especially after the battle at the Dark World's Teleportation Gate. That battle had exposed the relationship between the two guilds. Hell Rush, however, was a famous slaughtering god on the Western continent. He even commanded Netherworld Empire's strongest Trump Legion. Even Violet Sword's guild leader would have to take him seriously, yet, he obediently played the role of Shifeng's messenger. Good. Since guild leader Black Flame understands the situation, we won't overstay our welcome. Long Wuxiang decided after calming himself. He then stood to leave the room with Hermit. After they left Zero Wing's residence, the air around Long Wuxiang dropped a few degrees, becoming so cold that nearby players shivered. Even the Azure experts that had tagged along shuddered as Long Wuxiang's frosty aura swept over them, to think that even the famous Hell Rush would obey Black Flame. I hadn't expected Zero Wing to have such a close relationship with Netherworld Empire. Violet Sword might make concessions if they find out about this, Hermit surmised, glancing at the twisted expression his comrade was making. Concessions? Long Wuxiang laughed. I admit that Zero Wing is clearly close with Netherworld Empire, but after all is said and done, they are only allies. Zero Wing has barely any power in the West, while Violet Sword is a titan. It is obvious who holds the advantage on the Western continent. How much help would Netherworld Empire possibly be willing to offer Zero Wing? Moreover, this matter involves Violet Sword's future and prestige. The guild won't budge just because of Netherworld Empire's interference. Violet Sword aims to join the 5 great super guilds, after all. So what if Zero Wing and Netherworld Empire are close allies? And as for Black Flame's plan to negotiate with Violet Sword personally, that's nothing more than fool's talk. Regardless, we have, more or less, completed our goals here. Will you return now? Hermit asked. Of course, I am returning, Long Wuxiang growled, sneering at Zero Wing's residence. Violet Sword has already warned the Long family. Since Black Flame wants to be stubborn, he can't blame me for passing his message on to Violet Sword. I can't wait to see his confidence vanish. Long Wuxiang then left Stone Forest City and promptly returned to the Western continent. He planned to inform the rest of his family and Violet Sword of everything that had happened. Shortly after Long Wuxiang's group left, Silent Wonder received news of Shifeng's reply. "You're not really planning to visit Violet Sword, are you, guild leader?" Silent Wonder asked as she watched Shifeng's image on the screen before her. Refusing to meet with her fifth uncle might have been fine, but Shifeng was playing with fire by declaring that he'd resolve the matter personally. Zero Wing had become a titan in the east, but its roots were still weak on the western continent. Trying to convince the Zeus Corporation and Violet Sword to abandon their plans would be impossible with the power Zero Wing currently commanded. If this matter weren't handled carefully, Zero Wing could become the Zeus Corporation's enemy, which wouldn't be good news for the guild. "I've already committed to it, so naturally, I'll pay Violet Sword a visit," Shifeng declared. "And we'll be going in style." Going in style? Silent Wonder could not help but wonder if Shifeng had finally gone mad. They were talking about Violet Sword, and the meeting venue would be in the west. Once the Super Guild learned about today's events, whether or not they reached Violet Sword's headquarters alive would be a problem, not to mention arriving in style. "I've heard that Azure's younger generation has been invited to train with Violet Sword. Since that is the case, you should take a break from potion making and focus on training in the Lost Town," Shifeng said, paying Silent Wonder's exasperated expression no mind. "We'll show your family and Violet Sword Zero Wing strength. But there are only a few days left before the family competition. I'm afraid it's too late to start training now," Silent Wonder complained. Her trust in Shifeng's abilities, particularly his ability to help players level up, was unwavering. He had proven this with Dark Rhapsody and Deity Society's main force members. However, the upcoming competition wouldn't be in the form of a standard duel between players. Rather, it would be a competition of combat standards and techniques. The Azure Chamber of Commerce considered weapons and equipment to be external strength. The chamber was powerful enough that acquiring the best items was only a matter of time. Hence, Azure didn't need its younger members to rely on items, but their potential. However, one couldn't just improve their combat standards and combat techniques in a short time. They would have to train arduously for long periods. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU now, there were only 6 days left until the family competition. Seeking a qualitative transformation within such a short time was simply unrealistic. Moreover, while her combat talent was outstanding among Azure's younger generation, she was nowhere close to a match for the top geniuses that devoted themselves to combat. From what she had learned during the previous competition in Demon Stone Town, 2 of the younger generation were already close to the domain realm. One individual had already reached the domain realm. In contrast, she had only reached the half-step Void Realm standard. There was no way she could defeat those geniuses. "I know, but beggars can't be choosers. Besides, combat comes in various forms," Shifeng said, realizing Silent Wonder's concerns. "In any case, just make your way here. I've already given you access to the Lost Town. You can head to the residence to purchase a transfer scroll." "Alright, I'll leave immediately," Silent Wonder agreed. Since Shifeng was so confident, she had no choice but to follow his wishes. She had grown massively during her stay with Zero Wing, and she couldn't possibly sully the guild's name. Following which, she left the Candlelight trading firm and made her way to Zero Wing's residence. Chapter 2597, Changes to the Lost Town, Zero Wing's residence. With a flash of light, Silent Wonder arrived in the residence's plaza, looking worried. She was already at the half-step Void Realm standard, and crossing that barrier soon was entirely possible. A single flash of inspiration is all she would need, especially in her current state. She had already refined her control and pushed her 5 senses to their limits. Making a breakthrough in a single battle was likely. Even if she did, however, she'd, at most, reach the Void Realm before the family competition began. Her combat standards still wouldn't compare to Azure's combat geniuses. Thus, she struggled to understand why Shifeng suddenly wanted her to train in the Lost Town. This wasn't her first visit to the town, and she was aware of the Extraordinary Tower's astounding effects. The tower was the very reason she had reached the Truth Realm, although reaching the Ascension Realm was still a major challenge for her. In fact, reaching the Ascension Realm would be much harder than reaching the Void Realm. This place, before she had even exited the teleportation array, however, the scenery dumbfounded Silent Wonder. Many of Zero Wing's members fought translucent phantom clones both within and outside of the residence. Their battles were fierce, and some even met their demise. Meanwhile, the Zero Wing members watching from the side seemed envious. However, what truly surprised Silent Wonder was the incredibly low mana density within the Lost Town. She couldn't even sense the flow of mana around her. Conversely, the mana within her felt far more apparent than usual. She also found it easier to manipulate. Moreover, her mind didn't feel clogged in the Lost Town like it did in most mana-deficient environments. She knew exactly how valuable such an environment was. The various powers Tier 3 experts were all busy, desperately hunting for methods to unlock their mana bodies effectively, but perceiving the mana within their bodies was incredibly difficult, let alone manipulate it. The Lost Town's environment made it easier for players to notice their own mana. Naturally, this would be immensely helpful as they work to unlock their mana body's potential. Even so, Silent Wonder shook her head, returning to her prior thoughts. While the Lost Town's training environment had improved, she still only had 6 days left. Since travel to the Western continent would require a full day, she only had 5 days to train. Even in such a useful environment, trying to unlock her mana body in 5 days was asking for the impossible. When Silent Wonder entered the Extraordinary Tower, however, she was shocked again. If the Lost Town were a precious training ground, the Extraordinary Tower was sacred, especially to players trying to increase their mana control. In the tower, she could sense the various mana elements around her and their movement patterns. It felt like nowhere else in God's domain. What do you think? Do you think you can unlock your mana body's full potential before the family competition now? Shifeng asked as he approached Silent Wonder, smiling when he saw her dazed expression. God's domain offered a variety of ways to increase one's combat power, particularly after players reached Tier 3. The benefits Tier 3 players could gain by improving their mana control were in no way lesser than what they could gain by training their combat standards. I can train here regularly? Silent Wonder asked. This wasn't the first time she had stood in the tower, but it had changed drastically. She found it truly hard to believe that she could spend all her time training in such a sacred place. This environment was astonishing, and it had to come at a high price. Of course, Shifeng confirmed, nodding. He understood Silent Wonder's concerns, and maintaining the Extraordinary Tower was costly. After activating the Extraordinary Tower's 3rd floor, he had to spend 20,000 magic crystals per day to keep the 3rd floor's divine runes active. No first-rate guild could afford the expense, but it wouldn't be a problem for Zero Wing. Zero Wing was more than capable of keeping the Extraordinary Tower running at full power every day. Although I can't make any promises, I should have a high chance of succeeding before the competition, Silent Wonder said after giving the matter some thought. However, are you sure you won't reconsider visiting Violet Sword, guild leader? Violet Sword is the only one harassing my family on the surface, but it's backed by the Zeus Corporation in this. If the situation isn't handled carefully, our guild might not be allowed on the Western continent anymore. Thanks to her experiments and the ancient potion Shifeng had given her, she had unlocked over 30% of her mana body. If she focused on training in the Extraordinary Tower, reaching 100% within 5 days was definitely plausible. However, the family competition was a small matter. The Zeus Corporation was the real problem. The West's guilds under the Zeus Corporation's control weren't limited to the Azure Chamber of Commerce and Violet Sword. The corporation had significant shares in a few adventurer alliances, as well. Even without Violet Sword strength, Zeus could easily destroy a superpower in the West by simply issuing a bounty. Meanwhile, most of Zero Wing's power lay in Cold Spring Forest. The guild had far less influence outside of the neutral map. There were also quite a few superpowers targeting Zero Wing in the east, not to mention the west. As long as you can do it, it's fine. Don't worry about the Zeus Corporation. If they really want a fight in the end, I don't mind giving them one, Shifeng said, brimming with confidence in his guild. That's right. If the Zeus Corporation goes too far, we'll prove that Zero Wing isn't to be trifled with. Aqua Rose commented as she approached. That's why you don't have to worry about anything, Wonder. Just focus on unlocking your mana body. You mustn't let those bastards look down on Zero Wing. Silent Wonder was touched by her companion's assurances, although their comments still rendered her speechless. It was enough of a problem that Shifeng, Zero Wing's guild leader, liked to cause trouble, but now, Aqua Rose had picked up the habit. They were talking about one of the top 10 corporations in the entire world, not an opponent to be casually provoked. After Shifeng gave Silent Wonder some tips to unlock her mana body, he sent Aqua Rose and the other guild members with fully unlocked mana bodies to Zero Wing's residence. He then began to plan the raid on the Demon Wolf Den that housed the medium teleportation gate. Once they secured it, Zero Wing would have another open path to travel between the two main continents. Some time later, 12 players gathered in the residence's spacious plaza. Although there weren't many of them, the collective mana irradiated substantially increased the mana density in the plaza. Guild leader, everyone's here, but I'm afraid that raiding the Demon Wolf Den you mentioned will be difficult with just 12 of us and those personal guards, Aqua Rose said. For the various superpowers, having 12 Tier 3 experts with fully unlocked mana bodies and several dozen Tier 3 personal guards was definitely something to be proud of. God's domain's powers would even consider the force nearly invincible, but they were about to face the monsters in the Demon Wolf Den Shifeng targeted. According to Fire Dance's scouting reports, the Demon Wolf Den was home to more than 50,000 monsters, with level 120 lords being the weakest among them. Many of these monsters were even ordinary Grand Lords and Grand Lords with special bloodlines. Moreover, the Den had a particularly severe environment. Even Fire Dance, who had already unlocked her mana body's full potential, had nearly lost her life during her scouting mission. It would agree with you, but don't we still have a Tier 4 personal guard? Shifeng countered, chuckling as he gestured to the fully armed Versailles behind him. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Him. But his level, Aqua Rose only felt concern when she looked at the elderly NPC. Versailles might have an imposing aura, but she couldn't help the feeling that he would be unreliable. While Tier 4 NPCs were very powerful, Versailles was only a secret silver guard. At best, he could hold his ground against an ordinary mythic monster of the same level, but the old man was only level 112, which was even lower than the gathered players. How was he supposed to help them fight level 120 plus mythic monsters or Grand Lord ranked mutated demon wolves that rivaled mythic monsters? The rest of the team worried, as well. They could now afford to risk their personal guards' lives, but resurrecting a fallen guard would still require the precious water of life. It wouldn't be a laughing matter if all of these personal guards fell in battle. Let's go. You'll understand when the time comes, Shifeng dismissed the matter, still chuckling. He then led the team to the Demon Wolf Denver. Meanwhile, on the western continent, Long Wuxiang had returned to the Azure Chamber of Commerce's residence and relayed Shifeng's message to his family's elders and grand elders. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.